Welcome to day 3 of the AML Summit. It is so exciting to see all of you here again. We have had 2 days, chock-a-block. It has been a lot. Some of the comments have said they've doubled their AML education that they usually do in a year, just in this summit. So thank you for that privilege of that. I'll wait a little bit for more people to come through as they flow into the room. We have been loving seeing all the chats that have come through, everybody collaborating. It has been the absolute joy. And I'm so excited to see what we've got set up for you guys today. I will cover some things in the housekeeping when it comes to CPD certificates, but and Nathan just answered that they'll be coming through in the next week or so. We absolutely surpassed all of our expectations and what we hoped for attendance for the summit. So we're just behind the scenes working a little bit on how to get those certificates to you. For those that have been with us on the previous 2 days, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand in the chat. It'll be nice to see all of our friends that have come back for another day. And also to let us know where you're chiming in from. We want to do more of these events regionally. And we want to go to the cool, beautiful places around the UK rather than just the big centres. So we'd love to see where you guys are at, and then hopefully we'll be able to come out your way at some point for a nice lunch. But nice to meet you in person. Okay, cool. So day 3, Brighton, Margaret. I've been wanting to go to Brighton, so that will be a yes from me on that one. Okay, day 3. Let's grab our slideshows. Okay, so today we are covering your roadmap to AML compliance. This has been our most registered for day, and I think I know why. Fantastic. My name is Sophie Maxwell. I'm from New Zealand, not Australia, and I'm the Events and Community Manager for Firmcheck. Fantastic. So where are we at? Housekeeping. So these sessions are being recorded, and we will share those recordings with you post-summit. We have got some that are sitting on YouTube at the moment. They won't sit there forever. They're just there for the interim. And there is a slight delay in putting those up as well. You can leave and come back. You don't have to stay here the whole time, although we'd love to see you. Just leave your window open. You don't need to close that out. Shortly, the behind the scenes, the side stage Firmcheck team will upload the handbook, your workbook for the summit. If it's your first day, no, not a problem at all. Still download that workbook because our presenters today have created specific content in that workbook that they'll reference in their sessions. Ask questions and collaborate in the chat. That has been the biggest joy we've had, is seeing you guys answer each other's questions, share your worries and concerns. We review all of those too. We have Calathea Solutions who have been sitting on the sessions. They're answering those questions for you, and any that aren't answered will be answered post-summit too. If you don't want to see the chat box, we've had some feedback that it is popping off too hard and it's a bit distracting. You can click, there's a button that with an arrow that's facing that way, and you can slide that to the side, or if it's not enough, you can pop out the chat and just close that so it doesn't come up. And your CPD certificates, they'll be sent by the end of the week, hopefully. I'm hopefully not overly overestimating ourselves, just because of the volume of people again. So you'll get those at a point soon. Okay, so what are we covering today? We are joined first by Kayleigh from Telleroo, covering are your services leading to non-compliance? This is great in that we'll be able to talk about when you're adding new services to your firm, what do you need to ensure that you cover so you don't have any AML holes in your bucket. We have Ian Cooper and Penny from FYI covering all your AML documentation needs. We'll have a fireside chat with Kevin Heaton from Heaton Vences. For the people yesterday, again, we have a TNT session, 5 minutes or so. I was awake up all night trying to figure out what we could do to top a comedy skit. So you'll see what that is at that point, just at 10:55-ish. You'll see Kevin Lord again, our most favourite Scott, and he'll be talking about building an AML process. And then you'll see me at the end of the day managing AML like a project manager, which is more akin to my background. So I'm excited to talk about something I'm passionate about here as well. So I believe that covers everything. Yeah, let's bring Kayleigh onto the stage. I'm really looking forward to seeing and hearing what she has to say. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you. Fantastic. So, Kayleigh is a partnerships manager from Telleroo. You'll often see her at speaking events. I did see you talk at Accountex North and lingered for a little bit, and I was like, damn, she knows what she's talking about. And especially too, being a young woman in the industry as well, I was like, okay, cool, I can aspire. There's role models here for that. So thank you for doing that. I will leave the stage and leave you to talk about services leading to non-compliance.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Let's get this screen shared. There we go. 1 second.
You're okay.
Got far too many tabs, it appears. Right, there we go. We can share that. Here we go. Beautiful. Hopefully you can all now see my slides. So good morning, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed the last couple of days of the AML Summit. Today, are the services you're offering leading to non-compliance? So what I really want to look at is how processes can lead to non-compliance and the things that you should be looking at and doing in order to prevent this. So I am not an AML expert, shocking, I know. But what I have done is spent the last 5 years working with hundreds of accounting firms to launch and deliver new, profitable and efficient service lines to thousands of clients. And a key focus in that process is maintaining and building the integrity and the reputation of those firms, of which a key part is making sure that they remain compliant throughout that. Now, there will be a number of polls throughout this, so please do engage, give your feedback, add any comments, etc. in the chat. Same for questions, and we will absolutely have time to do questions at the end. So without further ado, I want to start by telling you a story, and it is a little bit of a scary one, unfortunately, but this is a story of a firm who had introduced payments as a service for their client base. The process, if you want to call it that they had in place was that the client would add their suppliers and their own invoices into Xero. And each week, their accountant would log in and they would send them a list of outstanding invoices. The client would email back with which ones they wanted them to pay. Accountant then had access to their bank account and would log into their online banking and manually input each of those payments and pay them. And that went on for about 6 months. Everything seemed absolutely fine. But what eventually came to light was that actually a number of the invoices that the client was uploading were fake. And that non-business related cash had been deposited into that account. They were uploading fake invoices and having the accountant pay them to effectively clean those funds. The firm was absolutely devastated. They pulled their payment service from all of their clients. And as a result, they actually lost 7 of their clients who wanted that service from them. The knock-on effect of not having the right processes, the right platforms in place, or the right responsibilities designated across the team can be awful. For them, 7 clients wasn't the end of the world, but for a firm that had 100 clients, it was still a hefty knock. And it really, really put them off not only payments as a service, but introducing new services full stop. And there was actually one point where they were talking about just going back to offering compliance services and just getting more and more compliance clients through the door and doing the basic stuff and not expanding that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we avoid those situations? How do we enable you to introduce new and exciting service lines in a way that is compliant and doesn't leave you at risk? So first poll of the day, hopefully Firmcheck team are waiting in the wings, but first poll of the day, what is your biggest concern when it comes to implementing new services? Is it client perception? Is it price? Is it the AML requirements and not knowing where to start with that? the time it's going to take, or other. And if it's other, please do share in the chat what it is that you are worried about. I'll come back to the results of that in a moment. But for now, I think it's fair to say you're all probably well aware of the landscape of accountancy services and how that's evolved over time. And there is this real emphasis on increasing the variety and the complexity of services that are being offered by accounting firms. And I think that's driven by two main things. The first being the changing needs and expectations of your clients. Actually, if we think about SME clients here in the UK, the people that they typically went to for advice are no longer around. Those bank managers aren't there for them to go and meet up with and talk about things. Actually, if they are looking for support from them, it's phone calls into call centres to speak to people that have no idea about their business. And accountants are now that key source of advice. And I think that, coupled with the marketing that's out there about the skills and the value that accountants and bookkeepers bring to businesses, means that they are turning to you for this advice, and you are having to think about the things that they want and how you badge those services up. The second is growth. If any of you attended the ACCA roadshows last year, I think the number one thing firms were looking to do was grow. And there are typically two ways people are doing that, right? One is bringing new clients in at the top, and the second is charging higher fees per client. Acquisition of new clients typically way harder and way more expensive, and so upselling clients is the main way people are doing that. And if anyone knows of Amanda C. Watts, she talks often about the freedom practice, which is this idea of having between 10 and 50 clients but charging top end fees at like £2,000 a month. And you can't do that with just doing base compliance work. You've also got vendors constantly selling the benefits of their services and pushing you to get up that implementation curve as quickly as possible. But what they're not always talking about is the AML implications of that. And they're not always giving you guys the necessary support to implement those things in a sustainable and safe way for you. Results-wise on that poll, it's looking like most people, it's time that's really holding them back. Time, AML, price, client perception in that kind of order, but time being the key one. And I think that's a huge, huge thing. And as we go through this, there will hopefully be some tips and tricks to help you do this in a way that is a little bit more efficient. But identifying AML requirements. So when we think about this, this is going to include the things like due diligence, risk assessments, record keeping, all of the things that you've been hearing about for the last couple of days. And those requirements are going to vary depending on the nature of the service offered and the clients that are being served. If we come back to the story I told you at the beginning, that is not uncommon in terms of the process that accounting and bookkeeping firms are following when we go out and speak to them about payments. So typically invoices received from a supplier, they're being put into the accounting software. Those outstanding invoices are emailed across to a client to decide what they do and don't want to pay. And then many have access to clients' bank accounts to then make those payments and go on and reconcile them. Actually, when we're thinking about AML and the risks presented here, there's a few different things to think about. Supplier onboarding being the first one. Actually, do we know who these people are? Are we running credit checks on them? Have we gained all of the information we need to have about them to be comfortable that we are onboarding them as a new supplier for this business? Invoice capture and verification, are those details correct? Are we comfortable that they've come from the right places? Invoice approval, so actually, if it's a larger company and marketing have spent some money, it shouldn't be someone in product or someone that hasn't touched that approving those invoices. So how do we get those in front of the right people to get those approvals? Pay run creation and segregation of duties, should it be the same person doing that process the whole way through and ultimately setting that up? Likely not. So how do we segregate those duties and make sure the right people are involved at the right time? You've then got some of the more technical pieces around confirmation of payee and pay run approvals and what that looks like. And again, making sure you've got the right people in place, the right platforms in place to do that. And then ultimately at the end, reconciliation and remittance and tying everything up as it should be. I think the important thing here is that when we look at the poll we just did a minute ago and people are saying time is the key issue here when it comes to implementing these services, and then you look at all of these different areas to consider, I think it's really easy to see why people shy away from it or how things get missed, because it can be really, really time consuming. And I think that's where we need the processes. That's where we need to think about the software. And that's how you're going to make those efficiencies and make it possible to implement a new process in a safe, sustainable way without it taking hours and hours of your time unnecessarily. So thinking about what that process could look like if we were to look at the right people being involved, if we were to look at having the right tech involved, if we were looking at all of those things, what would that process then look like? And this is what I spend the bulk of my time doing with firms now. It's not selling the idea of making payments. It's not convincing them it's a great idea or telling them how much money they can make. It's about looking at the process and how we streamline that and how we automate it as much as possible in the safest way possible for them and for their clients, so that you can meet that changing need of your client base. You can also look at the increase in revenue, etc. But how do we do that properly? So if we were to rework the process we just looked at, what would we change? So actually at the front end, we've got supplier due diligence and onboarding. Have we got a process in place that says this is the information we collate for all new suppliers? Where is that stored? How do we capture it? What's the timeline on that? Then we are putting invoices and bills into Xero. How are we doing that? Most of you likely already have HubDoc, Dext, whatever in place, but are we using that consistently? Have we defined exactly what that process looks like at all times? Once those invoices are in there, how are they approved? It might be that it's a relatively small business and it just needs them to approve it within Xero, and that's fine. But for those slightly larger businesses or more complex businesses, have we looked at something like an approval max and bringing that in place to make sure that those things are, again, being captured? We've got a clear audit trail of who is approving what and when. You've then got segregation of duties. So on this process here, we've got down the bottom, accountant 1 creates the pay run and submits for review. Very common process in Telleroo. Someone at an accountancy firm goes in for that client, creates a pay run based on due date or based on planned date, and submits that for review. And at that stage, our system will go through and do a number of checks around confirmation of payee. We will highlight things like if bank details have been changed in Xero, if the name has been changed of that supplier in Xero. And what we then have is accountant or bookkeeper number 2 reviewing that pay run, reviewing those errors, reviewing those alerts, having the opportunity to go, does this feel right? Is this what we should be doing? And then it goes to the client to approve or decline those payments. So again, you're pushing that final approval back to the client to have that say so. One of the things that came out in that initial conversation in the story that I told was that actually, when they were then looking at re-implementing payments as a process, they didn't want to have client bank access, and they didn't want to be the ones finally pushing that button for those payments to go out, because that was a lot of responsibility sat on them. And when those fraudulent payments were being made, actually it was them that were pushing the button on that. So having a method where the client takes responsibility of those payments actually leaving a bank account and ultimate approval was really, really important for them. Then payments are sent automatically on those scheduled dates. Again, we're removing the ability for people to intercept, for people to do things that they shouldn't, and keeping the processes really, really clean. And then to tie all of that up, you've got things like one-click reconciliation and batch remittances. And as I say, this is what a process looks like with Telleroo. We are not the only provider out there, right? I have no problem saying that at all, but these are the things you want to be looking at when you are going through that process and thinking about where are the pitfalls, where are the things we need to be thinking about. On the last slide, it was supplier onboarding. Tick, we've got a process for that. Invoice capture and verification. Again, we've solved that. Approval, we've got it. Pay run creation and segregation of duties. Yeah, we've nailed that piece. Pay confirmation, pay run approvals, reconciliation, remittances, all of that you're ticking off throughout this and managing all of those risks really, really quickly and easily. The other thing to think about, and I stress this around thinking about platforms and ways of doing this, is transaction monitoring. That applies particularly in this case, but definitely in others as well, which is you can't possibly sit and monitor every transaction that goes in and out. It would be unrealistic to think that you could. But again, this is where tech can come in. It's something that we have on our side, is that we have a constant transaction monitoring system that is looking at the transactions going out and highlighting potential issues. We are highlighting potentially fraudulent payments, etc., and able to manage that process alongside you. So before we move on to how we actually integrate this kind of stuff into the service delivery, another poll for you, which is, how do you currently offer payments as a service to your clients? It might be that you don't and you don't plan to, you don't, but you would like to. You do it with client access to bank accounts, you're using Telleroo or potentially using another software. This I always find really, really interesting because we continue to be busy onboarding new firms. So I'm always intrigued to see what people are up to. Let's have a little look. Yeah, direct access to bank account. That doesn't surprise me at all. Don't offer payments and don't want to. That's intriguing. If you've popped that answer in and you don't mind sharing, it'd be really great to understand why that is and what you're worried about in the chat. That would be really helpful. But a fair few there that don't but would like to, which is always great to see. I think we're definitely seeing more and more people moving towards this. There's a definite trend towards offering fully outsourced finance functions for clients. and payments form a big part of that, because otherwise there is a little bit of a gap in that full process, particularly on the bookkeeping end. I will give that a couple of moments for you guys to keep answering that as I move on. But integrating compliance into service delivery. One of the things I always find really, really interesting is that when you look up articles on AML failures within accounting firms, there tends to be 3 things that are regularly cited by the people when they're asked. One is they didn't realize that it applied to those clients. One is they were not aware of what the requirements were. And the third is that they were overwhelmed. The last one, I think, rings true for lots and lots of people. You guys answered it in the poll that actually time is a huge issue. If you are doing a million things, juggling a million things in a small amount of time, it's really, really easy to feel that sense of overwhelm. And what tends to happen is people bury their heads in the sand. Not being aware of the requirements, I think sometimes it's not simple to see what you need to be doing. And so actually having practical strategies for integrating AML compliance into your firm's service delivery process is crucial. So a few things here in order to be proactive. Policies and processes written in plain basic English that can be shared with the team, I think is point number 1, right? We have at Telleroo, we've got a bunch of policies around AML, around compliance that are jargon filled, that we have to make us nice and compliant. And then we have a system that kind of breaks that into English and walks us through it in a much simpler way. And I think that's really important to overcome that piece of not being aware and not understanding which clients these things apply to. Clear updates when appropriate. Again, anything that gets updated needs to be in plain English and updated on a nice regular basis with your team. Conducting regular staff training and testing. This one I love in particular. I think when you talk about testing, people get a little bit anxious, and your team can easily feel like they are going to fail and it's going to be bad for them. That's not the case. We do this at Telleroo all the time. We have like spot testing from our team where they will go to a random member of the team, apologies, and ask about whether they know where a process is held or whether they know how to access this thing, or they'll ask them a question. And actually, it's not about the team failing. It's about identifying the shortfalls in our compliance team where we need to do better, where we need to provide clearer updates, where we need to provide better support. And the more that you do that with your team, the easier it becomes. And they start to realize that actually it's about a culture of learning, about understanding, about growth, and it's not about catching people out. So highly, highly recommend that. And then leveraging the technology. If you don't have to do something manually, let's find a way to remove that from you, to give you that time back to focus on being proactive in other areas. It's so, so important, as you know, and we all have to get better at systemizing and protecting ourselves and our clients. One of the things I said right at the start is that vendors, I think, are out here, we're selling how great our services are, but we're not necessarily helping you with this. And so really, really keen to get your thoughts on another poll here, which is, what do you feel that your suppliers could do more of to support you with implementing new services and technology? Is it that you need more education? Do you need onboarding support? Is it better ongoing support, marketing materials, other? And again, if it's other, please do share in the chat what you're looking for from vendors, because I think without this information, I think some vendors we're shooting in the dark. We're not 100% sure what it is that you need. So please do share your opinion on that. It's very, very much needed. So key thing popping up at the moment, ongoing support. I think that's really, really true. I think there's a lot of pressure to get you guys active at the start and to get you up that curve. So the education and the onboarding is typically there, but it's that ongoing support as you continue to use the product, as you add more clients in, that's often the shortfall. So good to see that the thinking is correct there. I'm conscious of time, so before we go to a very quick Q&A, I just want to cover this. New services are key to growth and survival for firms in today's accounting world. However, I really, really want people to remember the 3 Ps, which is people, platform, process. We are going into event season. You are all going to be out meeting lots of vendors, be it at Festival of Accountants and Bookkeepers, Digital Accounting Show, XeroCon, Accountex, whatever it is. There are going to be rooms full of people selling you exciting new services and tools. The 3 Ps is what is going to help you to get through this without it taking you a bunch of time and remaining compliant. People, who is responsible and for what? Who needs to be updated if something goes wrong? Who needs to be updated if something changes? Platform, what tech can you use to make things easier and more controlled? What does that tech need to be able to do for you? How do you evaluate them? And on that, the simplest way that I have seen used really effectively is to list all of the things that you want from a software, rank those in terms of importance, and then literally ticks and crosses during the demos for those potential suppliers to work out what is and isn't going to work for you. It's really, really simple, but it's going to stop you going in and getting shiny object syndrome and going, yeah, that sounds great, and being sold all of the wonderful functionality on a stand, and then finding out that actually it doesn't do the things that you need. And then last but not least, process. What is your internal process for your team? What is the external process with clients? If something goes wrong, what do you do then? And that's the real test of a process. It's great when it runs perfectly, but what do you do when it doesn't? Last poll before Q&A, I promise, which is what, if anything, would you like from Telleroo next? We can set up a call, we can send you some more information, we can give you access to our free partner portal and demo account, because I'm conscious we didn't get a chance to dive too deep into what we do over here. So please do pop any answers in there and we would be happy to follow up with you. And I will then jump into Q&A and see what we have, if anything. Again, no such thing as a silly question. Please do pop them in. Let's have a look. What have we got? There's one more cupcakes. They were lovely. We often have cupcakes on stand. So if you do see us at an event and fancy a cupcake, please do come along and grab one.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I really, when we were creating the AML Summit, where we are today, we were trying to figure out a way that partners could play a part, because we, as software providers, often are at the coalface with our clients and hearing what they need, and so trying to find a way that we could balance, promoting who you work for, but also sharing the knowledge that you have. So this was a great session to really solidify where partners can play in terms of education for clients. We have a question. Telleroo cost. Tell us more.
Of course. So for our partners, so accountants and bookkeepers, our costs are about 20% cheaper than if a client comes to us directly. That starts at £5 a month and scales up from there depending on the amount of payments that client is doing. So yeah, anywhere from £5 upwards, and there's no max on kind of how many payments they can do. So it goes up from there. One thing I did want to address was there was one in the comments around insurance issues. This comes up a lot. If you have access to clients' bank accounts, your indemnity insurance will go up in price. One of the things that people do use Telleroo for is the fact that because you don't have access to the client's bank account and the client has the final approval, it does not affect your insurance in the same way. Happy to discuss that in more depth if anyone wants to pick up with me directly, but that's a very, very common thing that comes up all the time.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. How can people keep in touch with you and where can we see you?
Yeah, absolutely. I will be at all of the shows. Please do come and say hi. I'm at every show this year. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me on there. It's just Kayleigh Graham. My email is just kayleigh@telleroo.com if you want to contact me directly there as well. And I believe there are a bunch of links around somewhere on your screen as well for our website.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah. And thank you so much for jumping on today. And the content that you covered, yeah, really, like knowing what else we have in store today, it's really seamless with what everybody else is talking about. So that's great. And yeah, as I said, it's just so awesome to see other young women in the industry and talking about it and changing some tones and trying different things. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. There's some information in our workbook covering what Kayleigh just covered, and details of how to book a demo, etc. We're going to move on to FYI. Do you have all your client documentation up to date? We have Ian and Penny. Ian's from FYI. Penny is from Rowdens. When doing this original meeting call with them, I just wanted to hang out with Penny all day. Could go to high tea and just chat all things AML. And then so excited to have FYI in terms of that AML documentation process and that documents that you need. Seeing Firmcheck clients come through and the documents that you have, sometimes they're all over the place. They're a little bit out of date. So I'm really excited to be able to dive into this. I will just say, Ian, I'm just getting a little bit of feedback. So if you can move your mic closer if possible or turn your speaker down. Thank you so much. I will leave the floor to you guys. I know that you're going to yarn and chat away. So I'll leave you to share your screen. There was a question around slides. I think the Firmcheck team do have a copy of the Telleroo slides so we can add those to the handout. But I will hand the stage off and leave you guys to talk all things documentation.
Great. Thank you for the intro, Sophie. Nice to be here. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward to spending the next half hour or so with you. Always good to follow up after a Kayleigh session, and she's always awesome. So that's always nice to set the bar high with that session. I'm Ian Cooper, and now I'm sharing my screen. I head up the UK team for FYI. I've been working with accountants in specifically primarily document management and process automation and practice management for the best part of 20 years. So I've seen some good, I've seen some bad, and I've seen some really, really bad ways of handling documents. So it's a real passion of mine. And fortunately for you, there's someone that walks the walk and talks the talk, and really privileged and pleased to be joined today by Penny. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Penny.
Oh, hi everyone. It's lovely to be here, be part of this AML Summit, and thank you, Ian. So I'm Penny Rowden. My husband and I run a firm of chartered accountants in Chichester on the south coast of England. We have 10 of us in the team, with 2 offshored in the Philippines. So that's kind of 8 of us in the UK. And I think, like many of the firms listening here, AML's just always been a real headache for us. And but I think now we're sort of finally on top of it. So so hopefully, you know, some of the challenges and issues that we face will resonate. And you know, I think it's something that we want to not be a headache, but equally it has to be done. So it's how you find the smoothest processes and documentation to get that to happen.
Brilliant. Thank you, Penny. Look forward to unpacking some of that to change it from an onerous process maybe into a slightly less onerous process. If I just give you a brief introduction to FYI, just to give you a bit of information about who we are as a company. So we are a document management product primarily built in the cloud. We're a privately owned, privately funded company. And one of the main benefits that you receive from FYI is you've got a digital office in the cloud. So it provides tight integration with Microsoft 365 and brings all of your clients, documents, tasks, and jobs into one location. Document management might not appear an on-brand topic particularly. It doesn't get a huge amount of love, but it's really, really important. And some of the efficiency gains that you can have from all of the documents that you receive, emails, Word documents, PDFs, scans, pictures, etc., being able to efficiently centralize those in a single location is really important. We do one stage further as well. We've got documents and tasks. What we then introduced is the process automation. So huge amounts of the AML process is actually the similar or same task that you repeat every single time. So wherever possible, we look to utilize the FYI automation engine to do that for you. So I mentioned we totally love document management. It's a sweet spot, and I look at a perfectly structured database of how firms are filing their documents, and it brings me pleasure. So, and AML is definitely not short of requiring efficient systems and good processes for getting those documents stored efficiently, because let's not beat around the bush. It's creating huge amounts of work for you. And the burden of maintaining all of those internal documents and client documents, it's really significant. And realistically, it's only possible with electronic documents for a start. That being said, last week I was speaking to a firm, and they're still using paper-based across their whole system, but they are seeing that as a big area of risk. Speaking to another firm that have now taken the process of electronically or document scanning all of their documents to put them into a nice system. So because using paper-based systems for AML is really risky, especially where you've got issues such as data retention when you combine it with GDPR. So fortunately, the days of filing cabinets taking up big chunks of floor space have mostly gone. But if you are in that paper-based camp, I'm sure today's session is going to be a good one for you. What we're going to be looking at is how good systems will eliminate waste, how documents are created, maintained and audited. And this is a massive benefit for the people responsible in your firm for risk management. So Penny, I'd like to just bring you in and just see what challenges you found with all of these increased number of documents that are being brought in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started our firm back in 2011, and we'd actually sort of, my husband was a partner in another firm of accountants, so we kind of started with the same systems that we'd had there, and so we had all the filing cabinets and the paper-based files and everything else, and then we kind of moved on to server-based, and all the documents were being scanned in, and we were collecting ID and, you know, proof of address and all that sort of thing. But then as the, you know, trying to fill in all the different forms, I mean, I don't know if any of you use the Mercia forms that we were recommended to by ICAW, and you're effectively collecting an ID document, a know your client document, a risk assessment for each beneficial owner, for each business, for each client that you're dealing with, if it's on the self-assessment side, and so on and so forth. And you know, it comes to hundreds of documents, and trying to keep on top of that, and deal with it, keep it securely, and have it so that it's accessible by the right people, and that then you keep it up to date every year, and so on and so forth, is a huge challenge. With our sort of practice management system that we went on to a few years ago, I actually replicated those forms. You know, I actually wrote, if you like, wrote them out in form sort of basis on that software, and but it was really clunky, and it just meant we had so many blocks in the onboarding process. And one of the things we were finding were that the team didn't complete the onboarding process properly because it was taking too long, and they needed to get on with the work. And so then, you know, as we grew, they were getting on with the work, and then we didn't realize. And so, you know, it just all becomes a complete nightmare. And then you almost have an AML process sort of separate to your other processes, just to try and sort of make sure it gets done. So, you know, we needed to resolve that and sort it out. And it was one of the reasons that we moved across to FYI to help with all that document management, and all our processes and everything else. And we also use AML proprietary software as well to help with that, but we can talk more about it. And that's why I'm so delighted that Firmcheck are doing this, because honestly, it's such a headache for firms. And nowadays we've got these fantastic softwares coming in that can just change the whole landscape for us as accountants, because in the end we're just trying to help our clients and run decent businesses, and so we just need it to be part of our processes so that it isn't this massive headache.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, some of those points will resonate, I'm sure, with everybody on this list today. Just moving on, so in your pack today there is a single page, and it lists out some of the main documents you're going to need to create and maintain as part of this approach. I'm going to just call out here, I've been in the industry a long time. I'm not an AML expert, and this isn't a definitive guide of all of those documents that you're going to need. So that's my little caveat I'm going to put on the session. But here we're looking at some examples of the different documents that are maintained and created throughout the AML process. I generally split these into two broad categories. These are your internal documents. So these are either forms, policies and procedures, or they're external documents. And that would be sort of information that you need to receive from your clients, verify and store somewhere. However, in the internal camp, you can actually split these again into two. You've got your guidance, so in the form of your practice policies and procedures. These are the important documents that your team need to know where they are, be able to refer to, and generally keep their knowledge up to speed or up to date. But the practice procedures and policies, they're not a document designed to sit in the corner and gather dust. These are working documents. They need to be revisited regularly, and your governing body, HMRC, other organisations will be keeping and maintaining those documents. So it's really essential that you keep up to speed with those. And probably I'm just going to, whilst we're talking about policies and procedures and keeping the team up to speed, I'll probably pull on your expertise again, Penny, in terms of how do you make sure your team are up to speed with the latest documents and also maintain your practice policies and procedures?
Yeah, so what we have is in FYI, we have if you like, a Rowdens internal client, so that everyone has access to. You can have secure cabinets within FYI that only partners have access to as well. But for this purpose, we have a cabinet, and it's effectively a permanent file. And then under that, we have a category called AML. And so our practice policies and procedures are in there, and also our firm-wide risk assessment as well, which I don't think is actually on there, Ian, but that is a very necessary document as well. And so that everybody can have access. And then we will also have our SARs as well. So that's the reporting forms if you do find a problem. So we have those there, and then, you know, that they're just sort of available to everybody. And that's the joy of having something like FYI, that you've got everything just sort of on the cloud and accessible to wherever the people, so the people in the Philippines can access it just as you know, as easily as anybody else can. And of course, when we had lockdown and everything, everyone was forced to go remotely. So we just found that that's made a huge difference to us. And it's not just kind of on a server that is then reliant on that server working, or people being able to have access to it when they need it. So that's huge. And then in terms of, I don't know, do you want to go on to training at this stage, or we also have a training register as well that we keep up to date too. So, but that in fact is held in our proprietary software, along with the other documents as well. But we don't necessarily want all the firm to have access to our AML software. So we'll keep the main firm documents safely in FYI with access to that everybody can have.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think I saw a comment on one of these chats actually about people saying they've done more AML training in the last 2 days than they've done in the previous 2 years. So, but actually being able to register that and monitor it and make sure your team are regularly going through that training is an essential part. Definitely a form I need to add to these slides when I use them again. Yes,
that's right. And I think Calathea, who are, I think, on this or have been involved with this summit, they have very much training platform and everything else. And so we're certainly sort of on that and using their procedures. So it's actually having the right training for the right people in the firm, because I think people forget that everyone in the firm actually does need some training. You know, it's not just the client-facing people. It may even be receptionists and things who are dealing with clients coming in through the door, that you've got to be able to be alerted to just know what you're looking for. So there's sort of kind of different levels of training for the different people. And if you're a money laundering reporting officer, the MLRO, then you'll have different training maybe to somebody who's just dealing with a client on a day-to-day basis. So
absolutely,
it is absolutely vital.
Yeah, thank you. You've touched on something that it's how can we make AML data collection a little bit less onerous? And I don't know, I'm sure many of you will have heard of Will Farnell, but he talks about the concept of kind of really know your client. And so that ability to start merging your onboarding process and your client and your prospecting in with your AML by centralizing those documents and storing more information about the actual client's goals and ambitions and dreams and vision of their business. By combining those two documents together, you can be sure that each member of the firm that's got a touch point with that client can remember where there's a sort of central location to go and add those specific questions.
Yes, I think just sort of to comment on that, I think we tried initially to have a very detailed know your client form, KYC form, but we did find that was then a block to the onboarding, because we couldn't necessarily get all the questions answered before we needed to. So what we've done actually is simplify and just make sure that we can fill in the relevant forms for the right you know, the beneficial owners and the right people anyway, and the right business and everything, just be able to get that information so that we can crack on with the work. And we've made an informed assessment of them and have the right data in place there. But absolutely, in FYI, we also want, if you like, the RKYC form, the really know your client, so that we can gather all that information. And obviously you can be doing that when you're talking to the client, you know, maybe even when they're a prospect, but also as you onboard them and everything else, that you have all that data in one place, so that you know, it's very easy for whoever's looking to look after that client to be able to see what's there. And you know, and as you go on along the relationship with that client, that information doesn't get lost about their client. And maybe they're going to start a new riskier line of business, they're going to start doing something abroad, you know, whatever it is, and change from a very cash-based business maybe to something that isn't. So as their needs change and their risk changes and so on and so forth, that you can keep a very detailed, you know, that everybody has access to in one place is very important.
You're 100% right. And I think this whole area of AML being this thing sort of over in the corner, done once a year, in theory, best practice, but not being over in the corner, actually entwined into the kind of the DNA of the service delivery in the firm to their clients. Yeah, thank you. Right, I'm going to move on briefly. Here's a bit more detail about what the onboarding form is, although I'm sure all of you know this in detail, but some best practices, collecting that essential information. Start completing this early. So Penny mentioned, even at a prospect stage, there's information that you could be collecting, through that process that you can then use and reuse in the future. And removing the need to ask the same question more than once obviously creates a far better impression for any clients that you're working with. Also, making sure that you've got this master template that you keep up to date. So that is the forms that we were talking about, going back and referring to them regularly. As well as the onboarding form, you've got an internal form, which is to do with like the checklist, all of the information that you're going to need to gather through this process. And that's, again, another important form that firms will need to know where it is and be able to refer to you regularly. We briefly touched on risk assessment. Now, many firms will have the AML forms and their risk assessment forms potentially in different places, but a risk assessment form is going to be more tailored by yourselves from some sort of recommended guidance. But if you've got a particularly large firm working with clients with lots of overseas income, the risk assessment form is going to be a more complex and complete form than if you're a smaller practice working primarily in a single geographical location where the clients are similar, they're running similar businesses. Then you potentially will not require quite the same depth of knowledge that you would when filling out certain areas of client risk, geographic risk, etc. So this is the risk assessment forms are definitely on a kind of case-by-case basis, depending on what the firm's appetite for risk is.
Yeah, I think what's clever, if you can have risk assessment forms that then will uncover other questions, so that then you don't just have one that's just a massive load of questions, but then if they can be tailored so that if you say yes to one particular question, you know, do they work overseas or whatever it is, then you can then it'll uncover a whole load of other questions, and that just makes the whole thing a lot simpler and easier to use, rather than having to go not applicable to a million other questions. So that's where these electronic forms can be so clever.
And this is where it's great for companies that are providing these AML solutions, where they add so much value, because they do so much of the heavy lifting, the complex thinking, and then the workflow as well. So absolutely right in terms of sort of,
yeah, and I think it is just important to stress, and I think people now are becoming very aware, but certainly in the last few years in all the forums and things, I was just noticing that when people were asking about AML, so many people were coming back to say, oh, we just do a KYC check, we just do an electronic check, and a lot of the firms at the time were only offering that. And that then when you actually spoke to them about it, they said, oh no, you have to do your risk assessments and your your actual know your client forms separately. We just do the electronic check for you. And that just isn't sufficient. You've got to really know your client and actually do a risk assessment on each client, as well as on the basis of your firm-wide risk assessment and your policies and procedures. So it's got to be a little bit more detailed than
Yes.
people think.
Oh, I know it's one of the industry bodies, ICAW, ACCA, etc. One of their big concerns is about the re-engagement, the annual re-engagement process, which we will get to very shortly. But again, that's a big part of this whole process is, yes, you do it once, but it isn't to then be forgotten about. So different ways of being able to collect information. You've got great tools for being able to do it online. You could have spreadsheets for it, dare I say. There's some online forms as well, and lots of information coming in from email. And this is again why having a good system in place for you to be able to get to your client data and get to any supporting documentations is essential. I'm very conscious of time. We've got a little bit more to cover. So we've talked about this, and it's going to be a little bit of repetition, but this centralizing all of the documents into a single location that all of your clients can go and visit, all of your staff can go and visit, they know where to go to update these systems is essential. And it also goes a little bit further than that. We had one firm where they had an ICAW practice assurance visit, and the firm was able to just quickly retrieve all of their documentation for any client within a few button clicks to show what processes they'd used and the way they'd stored those documents and how frequently those documents were being updated. And the ICAW practice assurance visit, if they had gold standards to give out, gave this firm a gold standard and said this is the sort of level that we really want other firms to aspire to. So it's not essential for document management systems, but it does make it a lot easier. Efficiency, because we're talking about this increasing the amount of time that you have to spend on kind of administrative work. So making sure that you can get that documents quickly and efficiently is going to, again, make it seem like a less onerous task for you. I think in Kayleigh's poll, it was 40-something% of firms weren't taking on clients because of the time, and then AML followed very quickly afterwards. Those two things are pointing to, if you can do it efficiently, then that becomes less of a burden. Another one is security, and AML is making sure you've got to be able to demonstrate those robust processes and mechanisms to ensure that the sensitive information is adequately protected. You're collecting some of the most valuable information to the bad guys out there, the bad actors. National insurance numbers, date of birth, UTRs. This information that's being collected needs to be controlled really well. You only need the right people to access that information when it's needed. And there's a case for being able to put in access control on any documents, and where there's going to be multiple people using documents. Fortunately, Microsoft Office and Google have great functionality in there to actually give you the ability to look at version control. So you can go back as a firm owner and be able to see if there were any changes made to a document without you knowing about it. So the version control and access control really important. I was talking, and we briefly touched on this earlier, the AML process should become more entwined into your day-to-day work. So again, I think I'm going to call on Penny's skill and knowledge, and just ask you how you do your annual re-engagement with AML and risk assessment. Is it just a standalone job, or do you tackle it in a different way?
No, yeah, we very much have it as a final task within the annual jobs process. So that annual jobs process isn't complete until they've done the AML review check. And so obviously it's not as detailed as filling in the initial forms. It's a separate form that we have that just really ensures that there be no changes or and if so, then and if we need to complete a new risk assessment or whatever on that basis, then we will. But it's just totally built into our procedures, so that just gets done normally. Otherwise, we'd never be able to keep track of it. Really, we'd have to have, as you say, a separate job or something like that. So, and it's very much better done by the people who are actually been working on the job as well. So I think that's really, really key. So it's just much easier if the team themselves can do that, and then it can be reviewed by the manager or whoever we wish to review it. So again, you'd have a separate, I think, a bit like Kayleigh was talking, that you have a separate, people separated. I can't think of the word at the moment, but fundamentally, so that somebody will check that the work's done, so that there's separation of duties. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay. Yeah, and you're 100% right. If somebody's had they've been in the transactional data for that whole year, if anyone's going to spot any anomalies in those transactions for that client in that year, it's going to be the person doing the annual accounts, or if it's a personal client, then their personal tax return. So it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and it's not just anomalies, is it? It's if they've had just a change of circumstance, or a change of, they might suddenly have become a high net worth individual, for instance, which would be one of the things you might look at. So you might have some lovely massive thing happen during the year. So it's just really, really important that the people who are in the know are dealing with the AML on that side, I think.
Good. Well, that's a bit of luck that you said that, because it was also our recommendations of best practices. Build your annual checks into any of your annual re-engagement jobs, so where you're doing that work, and have the people that are doing the work trained in a good and efficient way, so they know exactly how to manage that process. So we're coming back towards just some top tips, I guess. And we've talked about training your team, making sure that they've got the right level of knowledge to see if there's anything of concern when they're going through their work, their day-to-day work, but also on that annual review process. We've talked about policies and procedures and governing bodies, organisations, as I think Penny mentioned, Mercia 2020 Group. There's numerous ones out there that will give you that framework for your policies and procedures. But don't just take it out of the box and off the shelf. Do customise these, because they are unique to each firm, as we've talked, appetite for risk, etc. Summarising again, supporting documents, forms, make them easily accessible, make it as well known how to get to as any of the other documents in your firm, or possibly more easy to get to than any other documents in the firm. We've talked regularly updating all of the different forms with any changes to legislation. It's not a document, an artifact that you leave in the corner and gathers dust. This is a working document, and it will adapt to your changes in your firm, changes in your client base over time. And then look at refining that AML process. This isn't a burdensome, doesn't have to be as burdensome as you might expect if you start sort of incorporating that into your annual engagement. And once you start doing that, you actually start getting a sense of how long it takes, and you can bake that into any fixed price or value priced billing that you're doing, because you know that a job is going to take an extra hour a year on top of the 20 that you're doing for your annual accounts, for example. So you're baking that extra time commitment to comply with these incredibly important regulations into your business model. So that was that's kind of summing up everything I wanted to talk about. Penny, we've got a minute or so left. Is there anything else that you think would be really important to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the thing that's really made the biggest difference to us is certainly moving to FYI in terms of document management and everything else. That's obviously huge. And then actually having a proprietary software, unlike Firmcheck, to do your AML process. And I'm not just saying that, it really has transformed everything that we've done, because we've just got everything in the right place. It's just simplified the procedure. You can collect all the ID safely, and certainly we found that the client feedback it just makes us look much more efficient and organised and everything else. And it kind of has stopped this awful business of the team just cracking on with the job without making sure that the AML is in place. So I'm really glad that so many people have registered for this summit, because I think it is so important, and it is just such a, it has historically been a headache for all of us. So it's just really important, particularly with all the bad actors we've got around the world now and what's happening in the world and cybersecurity and everything else. So we've got to take this stuff seriously. It's not just enough to say, oh, our clients would never be involved with that, because hopefully they won't, but you just don't know. So yeah,
we've heard that as well. And we talked about it in our conversation, Ian, of like, it is that right place, right time when it comes to this AML conversation. It's starting to heat up. People are starting to get fines. People are starting to be looked at. So let's get to it. Let's actually sit down and have a discussion about this problem and what we need to do to remedy it. And how do you even do it? To be honest with you, that's been most of our answers today and the previous days. How do you actually even do this thing? So that's fantastic. I'd love to see some people in the chat, maybe what they noted from this session from FYI and from Telleroo. But I just wanted to say a really big fat thank you. Penny, where are you in the UK?
We're you mentioned Brighton earlier. Well, we're in Chichester, so it's even better.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
Chichester's literally about an hour, so you'll have to come and come to tea.
Yeah, please. I'd love to sit down with you, but I'm just I reckon we should do an AML lunch down that way.
Absolutely, very happy.
And Ian, thank you so much for joining as well. And I really appreciate how, yet again, everything you're saying kind of aligns with what we've been talking about in the summit of getting your documentation up to date, organized and tidy. People are asking for your slides. That's always a really good sign. I believe we have a copy. The Firmcheck people will put that in the handout section. Where can we see FYI next? Where are you? How do we get in touch?
As per Kayleigh, we're doing all of the events. So alternative IT conference next Tuesday and Wednesday, and then a digital accountancy show. We are then going to Accountex, and we've also just been announced as a finalist for a App Partner of the Year for Xero. So we've got Xero Awards on the 1st of May, and then XeroCon in middle of June. So everywhere. But if you want to look electronically, you can go to our website, really short address, fyi.app, and you will find everything that you need on there. And a couple of questions I saw come in was, how much do we cost? The pricing is on the right-hand side when you go into the website, right in the top. We're really transparent with everything we do. And you will also read about our guiding principles about our approach to security, because it is core to everything that we do.
No, that's fantastic. And FYI has come across from the other side of the world as well. Is that right?
Australian founded. Yep, that's right.
No, it is really fascinating how much tech comes out of that side of the world. Obviously Xero as well from Wellington, which is where Firmcheck's from too. Lots of smart people on the other side of the world. So that's great. Fantastic. Awesome. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, Penny, at some point in the future.
I'm definitely coming to DAS, and I've almost certainly come to Vantex. I think we've got the whole team coming to XeroCon. So
that's right.
We shall definitely meet up. Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah. And that's the biggest joy about this, is we get to sit and have these conversations, but then strangers come up to us. I saw you on this thing, and oh yay, awesome. Get to see people in person. So it'll be fantastic. Awesome. Hey, have a good day, guys. If there's any other questions that come through from for FYI, just pop them in the chat and we can get them to them. But we shall move on to our comfort break today. Debbie, can someone post what conferences they're going to so we can maybe make a list to visit them? Firmcheck, I can speak to. We're at FAB, Festival of Accountants and Bookkeepers. You can see us at DAS, Digital Accountancy Show, and Accountex, where Xero co-founder and Firmcheck chairman Hamish Edwards will be there on our stand as well. Okay, so comfort break. yesterday, how could I top that? We did a 5-minute AML comedy sketch. It went down a treat. It was the perfect amount of funny and fun. Some people gave negative comment was that they missed it because they had to go to the loo or make a cup of tea. I was up all night trying to think of what to do, but I've handed it over to our on-side stage team to curate something for you guys. So we will just have a 5-minute session, make a cup of tea, go to the loo, make some notes in your workbook as well of the things that you've learnt so far, what you want to implement in your firm. Keep the window open. You don't need to close it. Just have it as background ambience, what we're doing for the next 5 minutes. So I'll ask our stage team if they could launch what we're doing. I believe we're doing some fun polls. Is that correct? I'm getting a thumbs up. If you see me looking this way, I've got a partner sitting here. I'm helping launch these. Okay, how do you verify the identity of new clients to ensure AML compliance? Hosting a Guess the Client's Identity game show, sending new clients on an AML themed scavenger hunt, or hiring trained bloodhounds for identity checks. These are obviously silly and they're meant to be fun, but that was the biggest feedback that we got yesterday, that everything's meant to be fun. We just need to find that nice balance between being fun and serious. Okay, so hiring trained bloodhounds, that's gone down a treat. Guess the Client's Identity game show feels a little bit too close to home, if I'm honest. Apologies, someone just came to the door. We are in a formal studio. Okay, so hiring trained bloodhounds, fantastic. Can we launch the next one? How do you keep your staff informed about AML regulations? You host an AML themed costume party. Wonder what the costumes would look like, to be honest. Incorporating AML training into weekly lunches. That actually seems like a legitimate idea. I thought these were meant to be jokes. Implementing a reward system for AML trivia and creating AML themed comedy skits. We have taken out the comedy skit from yesterday into its own video, so I doubt that could be counted as AML education, but we share that video with you guys just to have a post laugh about that. So hosting AML themed parties, creating AML themed comedy skits, that's good. Fantastic. I can't see the chat, I can only see the poll, just by the way. Do we have another cue? What's your approach to handling client cooperation and AML processes? We send clients on an AML themed holiday. Would love to do that. Offering office snacks for prompt responses, implementing a shameless compliance campaign, and paying them some cash on the side. Some of these are actually quite legitimate ideas, like maybe not the cash on the side, a shameless compliance campaign. Like I would probably like to engage with that, but I'm very much motivated by snacks. Totally. You'll see in my final presentation today, it is based around food. Cool. Offering office snacks. Okay. What does SAR stand for in the context of AML? Is it super awesome report, severe accountant retaliation, seriously angry regulator, or a suspicious activity report? The last one sounds boring, if I'm honest, and I wouldn't want to do it. Okay, fantastic. Right. Do we have any other fun ones? Okay, last one. Okay, last one. Complete the sentence. AML regulations are like a boring bedtime story, a thrilling spy novel, a game of hide and seek with criminals, and a party where no one shows up. It's the game of hide and seek with criminals, isn't it? Fantastic. Okay, cool. Hopefully everyone sat back down, a little less va-va-voom-y from yesterday, but how can you top that? And we didn't want to do it again because you do it once, it's funny. If you do it twice, it starts getting embarrassing. Okay, we have a fireside chat with Kevin Heaton of Heaton Vences coming up. We met Kevin on a tour with the ACCA, 6 cities, 2 weeks. So it was hectic. We really got to know each other. And our general manager, Kevin Lord, will be conducting that fireside chat. The thing I really like about Heaton Vences is, I was thinking about this last night, you guys are kind of like Guns N' Roses or like AC/DC. You just rock it and you just do your thing. And even with your marketing, I definitely recommend, if you're an accountant, following them on LinkedIn. They do some really, really cool different ways of getting conversations going. So yeah, definitely rock stars. Does that resonate with you, Kevin?
Yep, I've just put the skateboards up on the wall, so
Yeah.
all legs intact.
Yeah. Young, modern, innovative, defining. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say in this session. So Kev and Kev, I will leave the stage to you guys just to have a chat about AML compliance and how you do that with Heaton Vences.
Okay. Hi, Kevin. Good to see you again.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Yeah.
It's just for a bit of context, and we'll get this out of the way just now. My father's also called Kevin. So for my whole life, if anyone phoned the house, it was, do you want to speak to Big Kevin or Wee Kevin?
Okay.
Then graduated to Old Kevin and Young Kevin. And then when I joined Free Agent, Kevin McCallum, who was at Free Agent and CEO, there was 2 of us there, and then we employed someone junior called Kevin. So all of a sudden, I became the middle. I just became Kev or Kevin. Like I wasn't big, I wasn't wee, I wasn't. So how are we going to sort this out this morning?
I'll stick with old. You can go young.
You're very nice. You're very nice. For anyone that doesn't know you or doesn't know your background, do you want to give us a little rundown? Because you're a very forward-thinking accountant personally, but also the businesses that you've ran in the past and holding Vences just now. So do you want to give us a quick rundown of that, Kevin, if you don't mind?
Yeah. I started an accountancy practice back in the 90s when we used to do shopping bag and shoebox accounts. It was all nicely paper-based. We used to meet clients in person. It was all very local. Graduated through into the noughties as we started hitting the digital age and the firm grew. We started adopting some of the new software. Eventually got around to about 2017. My partner and I decided that was enough, call it a day. We had a good offer from another firm to sell out. Sold that practice, sat back for a little while. Obviously, I was excluded from working because of the contract we'd gone into. But my son, Joseph, who was then just completing his training at a mid-tier firm, said, "Dad, you look really, really bored doing not a lot. I've got this idea for a new firm. Any way you could just come and give us some advice and some help on setting it up?" And he and his best friend or colleagues set up this firm, Heaton Vences, and brought me on or back on board as their guidance and mentor, which kind of brings us to where we are today. Different firm, different idea, totally digital, totally on the cloud, totally outsourced with staff. Different world.
And thank you, Tina. Yeah, I forgot the obvious one: Scottish Kev and English Kev. Why did I not think of that? Sometimes you can't see the wood from the trees.
Well, I don't know. We're cross borders. I like to be that way.
Well, yeah, you've just mentioned that. So you've obviously seen a lot of change, and I suppose the presentation just before with Ian and Penny was speaking about paperwork and manual things and how the change in the industry has probably went from local to those borders being crossed, like you said. AML in the previous firm then, was it done, I'm guessing, completely different? Like you say, you were probably taking a lot of local clients and people that you knew. So how did you tell us how you kept track of that, and what dare I say, do you miss that, or when you look back at it, you go, oh my God, why did we do things like that?
I think looking back is just acknowledgement that it was different. As you say, it was local, local people referring other local businesses. You tended to know of people anyway. With it, and we were an ACCA firm then, and we are now. So with their guidance, you start thinking, okay, we need some documents to support these people. And I can still remember to this day in the previous firm, Tax Solutions, the first client who wasn't local. He was running an American agency or travel agency. And I can remember thinking, okay, how do we actually know who this person is, short of flying to Chicago, which didn't feel like a good option at the time. So then we started introducing, well, let's take a copy of passports and driving license, and let's have some evidence of they live where they say they are. Obviously, you've got a lot of paper documents coming in then, which would tend to include some business rates or something like that. So you'd had the information. So we started to think, okay, let's keep a record of this as part of the client folder, or client paperwork as it was then. And as we transitioned then into scanning these documents, that's Joseph, my son's first job in his uni holidays, was to scan all these paper in our filing cabinet onto digital format. But so we gradually transitioned, and ACCA were helping us in this respect with some of the things they were introducing at the time.
And Sophie kind of mentioned that we met you at the ACC roadshows, and a lot of the whole theme of the roadshow was about growth and the different stages of growth that you go through. And your talk was very much about your experience of selling your firm and exiting and things like that. So, and it's a real sort of hot topic just now in the industry. Now, you know, we're seeing acquisitions almost daily, actually, happening, and there's also a huge capacity crisis in terms of recruitment and getting staff and firms. So that acquisition's more and more attractive. How do you feel that the sort of, once you were being acquired, selling your practice, and then them coming in, looking at due diligence, looking at your procedures and your risk actually as a practice, how do you think your approach either helped that process? Dare I say, potentially inspired the guys purchasing you that their process wasn't great. So do you think that approach to making sure your policies and all that were tip top really helped the smoothness of that exit?
Yeah, in terms of the exit, we decided we'd have at least a 2-year road journey to get from where we were to have it in a fit state for sale to someone looking in, and part of that was tidying up the client records and making sure we actually had evidence that we knew who these people were and who we were dealing with. So, and again, that's as we were taking the documents from paper-based to digital, that anything missing in the records became obvious, and we were able to plug the holes, if you like, so that anyone coming in and buying our firm could have complete confidence that these clients, we knew who they were, we knew where they were, and we had a full know your client. And at about the same time, so we had the ACCA provided spreadsheet, they still do now, for a know your client document. You could go through, answer all the questions about your client, and it would suggest a risk, low, medium, high for that particular client. And we had that in the background, sat in the background when we came to sell.
And probably a direct question, do you think that made your practice more attractive than perhaps the one further down the road? Or you know, say that whoever, I can't really remember a relationship with your exit, but you know, ultimately you made the decision to exit. Someone buying you must have thought, these guys are more attractive, you know, we know the risk that we're getting into here. Do you think that helped overall?
I'm sure it must have. In benefit of hindsight, I didn't think at the time. It wasn't on my list of things to do. But yeah, looking back, I'm sure it did make a difference, because it just adds to the due diligence they were not having to carry out.
So move to Vences, sorry, and you want to go fully digital, and I'm guessing that also changes a bit of a relationship with your clients. So you know, you're not you don't know them as well, like you say, and or certainly they're not local. So how has technology helped with that onboarding journey? And if you could focus a little bit on the attitude of the clients, actually, because you know, we saw some of the comments, especially during Kayleigh's talk there, that, oh, my clients don't want to connect their bank account to here, or my clients don't want to do X, Y, Z. And actually, they could be even more protective, if you like, of sending passport information via the post or online and things like that. So yeah, first of all, how did that change the practice approach to it, but then also the attitude and the relationships that you have with your client?
Yeah, I mean, our approach to everything we do is tech driven, and even our taking on clients is they have to want to play in the same park as us. They have to adopt digital, they have to work digitally, and they have to be comfortable doing it. So that weeds out people who don't want to work in that sphere. And then the approach as a practice for Heaton Vences, we looked around and took on technology that would help us onboard a client, help us know the client, help us deal with the client on a day-to-day basis. And we use Carbon as a practice management tool. We build into that request for the new client is automatic requests for documents. Because we've pre-screened the client, we know they're happy to work with tech.
Yeah.
And the tech's just firing out, upload this document for us. We need this just as part of the onboarding process. So we just make it a seamless part of the journey. So it requires no explanation on our part, other than to say we need to carry out some due diligence on you before you can become a client of Heaton Vences.
And to be honest, at Firmcheck, we're seeing quite a lot of younger accountants, if you like, or certainly people starting from scratch where they don't have those legacy issues. You know, they pick and choose their clients. Like say, they're starting from scratch. They don't have that baggage. If I could ask you to imagine there was a scenario where you didn't exit the old firm, but we're trying to transition to digital processes. How do you think your, not so much digital processes, but thinking back to your old clients who you probably knew for many years, what do you think their attitude would have been to everything suddenly becoming digital? Now, I'm guessing they had a good relationship with you, so you'd be able to talk to them about it. But how would you have approached that? Because we've got close to 300 people online just now who are perhaps where you were 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, and going, God, I need to approach all these people and ask them for that. So how do you think you would have approached that?
I put it in a slightly different scenario, but when we were grooming our previous practice for sale, we looked at some of the issues we had. One of the big ones was around the amount of debt, the amount of money we owed as a client. So we took the decision to move everything to direct debit monthly subscription. And we were really wary about rolling this out to all the clients without exception. And having done it and made that decision, we were really surprised at the reaction of how people would, works for us. So I think, why didn't we do this before? So I think based on that, rolling out the use of technology with clients, had we stayed where we were, would have been equally well received, I think, because it saves clients time, it saves them effort. And if you're rolling out some tech that says, here's an email, send us a copy of your passport through this secure link, just click on that button, job done, they're not worrying about it. It's not taking their time, it's not involving them. So I think it would be a surprisingly high adoption of that requirement.
I tend to think that the majority of your clients will adopt things pretty quickly. And that as humans, probably we think we always put the worst case scenario as the the norm, and actually the worst case scenario A, very rarely happens, but B, if the majority of your clients do start adopting it, then that frees up the time for you to sort the slow coaches out, if that makes sense. What about internally then? Because we've heard a lot again, Kayleigh this morning and Ian just in the last half hour, 45 minutes ago, and Penny, about the need for AML and in particular, not just being a year-end task, but actually being a continuous monitoring and a continuous mindset of that. So how do you go about that internally at the new place now? I guess this is a very, almost like your client answer there. You're not going to hire people that don't want to do things on a consistent basis. So you're already probably 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. But how do you maintain that culture, and how do you maintain that mindset that the AML is actually just an umbrella feeling of everyday tasks that you do?
I think, again, it's part of HV's client culture that we have regular communication with clients. At a minimum, it's a quarterly catch-up with a client. Most clients are monthly catch-up. So, and part of that is just it's an ongoing conversation to fill in any missing parts of the story, what's changed in the client's life, what's happening with their business, have they got new investors looking in new directions. So that's an ongoing conversation. And since we've adopted the use of Firmcheck, then that note can go in. So it's either going into Carbon or Firmcheck. So we've got a record of that conversation. And our support and admin team, in fact, I've seen Deep on the asking some questions, so I know he's actually watching. So he'll be updating Firmcheck in that respect and looking for the annual review. But when we get there, it's already happened. We've already got record of the conversations during the year. So it may be a question of reaffirming some addresses or some documents, but it's just part of the process. It's part of everyday life. It's getting up on a Monday morning, and AML is part of our client infrastructure almost.
Yeah, do you know what? I've just looked. I get carried away with these things and very rarely look at my notes. And I've just looked at my notes from yesterday and said, remember and talk about Deep and how he's been here and he's been engaged. But again, that comes back to our day yesterday was about education and
yes.
AML and just education in general, actually, about the industry and software. It doesn't need to be formal, does it? Education, and it can be this, but you guys really give your team a lot of space and freedom to come to events like this. You see it worthwhile and pass on that sort of knowledge internally, but and also to their clients as well. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I think we started a bit later as well.
We did. It was that comedy sketch that's got in the way.
Do you know what? Well done to Sophie yesterday. If you didn't see the stand-up one yesterday, we were talking last night about. I was like, I can't believe you're doing this, and actually just giggled the whole way through as well. So, how do you see things moving with the practice and with your son and Emiliano in the background as well? You're always at the forefront of technology, you guys, and you're seeking that out. How do you think things will change with what you're doing and the relationship with your clients moving forward, and then ultimately the regulations moving forward as well? Do you just see this? Tech will start implementing even more and building on those relationships. You've never really seen it as a threat, have you? You've seen it as a way of enhancing that.
Everything's an opportunity. It's always an opportunity. Again, since partnering with Firmcheck, the reason we did it is because we've got some scale-up plans for Heaton Vences this year. We're rolling out some HV hub owners, so an additional 10 HV models coming up this year. So it was very important that we partnered with someone that could scale, and Firmcheck offered us that opportunity. And again, you were talking yesterday about the education aspect of it. Our team can drop into Firmcheck, undertake the training that's on offer there, be part of that journey. So I think we're just going to adopt it along with Carbon and our other tech offerings. It's generally part of our AML procedure, is part of our client journey.
Fantastic. And we've given HV Hub. I'm looking forward to that. It's didn't know that.
So are we. It's been a long time thinking about this one.
And I kind of said this to Joseph, your son, and Emiliano. They kept on talking about boards, and this is just so how uncool I am. It took me ages to realise they were talking about skateboards, which is what's on the back. What's the theme going to be like at the hubs? Is it exactly the same sort of branding and all that?
That replication. We're going to pass our knowledge to the new hub owners. They're going to use our systems. They're going to use our methods, our knowledge, our support. So we're just going to replicate what we've created for people who are enthusiastic about wanting to offer something to clients.
Wonderful. And just Sophie's jumped on, which does indicate that our time's up. We've met you at events. You're always very kind with your time and your patience and your knowledge. Best way to you're out at a couple of events as well that we've all spoken about. I'm pretty sure I've seen you on the speaking slots as well. Do you want to pitch them to the audience, or are you just going to just be as laid back as you always are and just say, come and approach me?
Yeah, we'll be wandering around most shows, I think, most days.
Thank you very much, Sophie.
I actually had a quick question, if that would be okay. I hope it doesn't double up on anything that's already been said, but you and your son and Emilio started Heaton Vences kind of from scratch, from new, and I know you've worked in a previous accounting firm. Can you allude a little bit into implementing AML processes into an existing business versus building them into a business from the start? Just like quick top tip on how you were able to do that.
Exactly what I said before. Don't be frightened that your clients are going to resist something. If you wrap it up as part of the client journey, part of the offering, that the service you provide to your client, then the resistance we found is very low. Most people are willing to adopt new tech as it's coming along.
And it's about that existing relationship or fostering that relationship with your clients, right? If you haven't spoken to them in a year and you go, hey, I'm actually changing all my systems, they'll probably be like, what? What are you? Who are you? Like, so it's about that fostering that relationship also, and that you have that good communication.
Yeah, just keeping that communication going all the time. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it is not a coincidence that we have really cool firms that are customers of Firmcheck. So it's awesome to have you in with us. But yeah, I really have always appreciated your view on innovating the accounting industry, and appreciate it at the SCCA Roadshow. Just slide it up. So I think I want to talk to you about using Firmcheck, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. So, I think after a few days we were quite comfortable with each other. So no, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And your unique view. That's fantastic. Thanks.
Great to see you. Thanks.
Great to see you too. Have a good day. We'll see you in person at some point, surely. Hi Kev, this is a unique day. We haven't seen you, didn't see you this morning like we had the other 2 days.
Good thing, bad thing?
No, just a different thing, just pointing it out. Okay, fantastic. So we're going to swing into a session that I actually think might be quite well received today, although I will caveat that we were a little bit nervous about this session, just remembering that we are from Firmcheck, but when it comes to building an AML process, we have harped on this whole webinar series about needing you to build your own process as it suits your firm, your customers, the way that you work. But we did want to kind of start to allude to a guidance of how to actually, what is the actual process, and actually try to give you the building blocks for it. So take this, incorporate it into your firm that makes sense for you. And this is just some recommendations. Don't simply copy and paste them. Internalize them, digest them. I'll leave you with Kev.
Thanks, Sophie. Can you tell that we spoke yesterday saying, oh, I hope people don't say this is Kevin's AML process. We're going to utilize that. And so thanks, Sophie. Thanks for the support there. Also, no coincidence that today is the biggest registration day of the summit, and it's the day I am not on the schedule too much. So there's some correlation there, of course. Which is great. Okay, everyone. So I'm going to go through the process of building an AML processor, like Sophie said, and I'm sure this will stoke some debate in the chat box, and that's the plan. Like we've been saying for the last couple of days, this is all about help and support, creating a safe space for us to have these conversations, get our fears out there, and being comfortable talking about them as well. I'm just going to change screens, and I will be sort of going in between my main screen and the other screen. I will keep my eye on the comments as well, so keep them coming, and I'll try and answer them as we go along. Okay. Before I do, and a shameless plug again, and one of the reasons that we're here and one of the tools that we hope will give you the support that you're kind of looking for, is that we did launch our AML maturity framework this week. The guys in the background have popped the link to that on the left-hand side. And, you know, I saw Kayleigh's presentation earlier, and the 3 Ps, the people, process, platform, stroke technology, is always, you know, when you're building anything from scratch, if you come from these 3 sort of fundamental areas, you'll usually be a good place. And we've done that with the AML maturity model, and you should kind of do that with your AML process internally as well. Think about the people involved, think about the processes that need to be done, and then what technology you can get in place to sort that the issue that you're trying to do. So again, just a quick recap of the 5 stages of the AML maturity. Level 1 is kind of undefined. AML is a complete afterthought. There's nothing in place to demonstrate that. You are seeing some of that, or we are certainly seeing some customers coming to us going, oh my God, just been audited, I don't have anything in place. You've then got level 2, and it's going kind of mirroring what Ian and Penny were saying earlier as well, that AML compliance is ad hoc, it's disorganized, there's limited awareness. Some of it lives there, some of it lives on an onboarding team. The risk assessments, if they're done at all, or with the senior partners, or perhaps people doing the year-end thing. So there is some sort of AML happening, but it's a bit scattergun approach. It's all over the place. You've then got level 3 of people who are competent. Actually, they are ticking all the right boxes. The AML is getting done, but it's really time consuming. It's probably not as clear in its process as it could be. Therefore, it's taking a lot of time, taking a lot of effort, and a lot of anxiety building there. And then we start coming on to the people who are probably doing this quite well. Kevin, you just heard there, fairly systematic. AML is a core part of their understanding. Everything is being done correctly, as efficiently as possible, as quick as possible, probably done on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and not just once a year. And then you go to step 5. You know, AML is actually a core component there, building on what Kayleigh was talking about this morning, that actually you are monitoring those transactions quite regularly. You are able to offer different services to your clients due to the AML work that you are doing internally as well. So that is, in a nutshell, a very brief overview of the AML maturity model. Download the full report or using the link on the left-hand side, where we go into each level in more detail and give you step-by-step tips on how to progress through. Talking about AML processes, you know, one of the things that you've got to have in place to be competent is to have a solid process in place, an AML process. It's quite straightforward, really. You know, if you want to be good at something, you have to be able to measure it, you have to be able to document it, and ultimately know what you're saying. And I've just taken this screenshot from the report itself, the summary of the report there, and you'll see right at the bottom there, you know, if you want to be competent, you do have to address the 6 fundamental elements of AML, and I will go through them during this talk, and I'll try and talk there. Someone's asking for the FYI side. First of all, where can I find help, and where can I get help to do this? And again, platforms such as, you know, Firmcheck and the AML Summit today is about giving you help and giving you guidance. So, you know, we heard Glenn Collins on day 1 talking about all the tools and tips that the ACCA can give you with this kind of thing. They do give you templates, they do give you case studies, firm-wide risk assessment help, that kind of thing. You've got really good external AML experts and consultants. who can help you in various means. So, for example, Lucy, who I think she may or still is in the background for us today, we've definitely got a Q&A session with her after today's summit. Calathea, they offer really good yep, she's there you are. Really good hands-on support for practices. They have been auditors themselves, so they know exactly what it is that people are looking for. They'll come in, they'll do mock audits of your firm, again give you help and guidance of risk assessments, firm-wide risk assessments. Now, again, they will help you with them, but they won't actually do it. And then also industry experts, again, like David Winch, who we had on day one. You will hear and see David all the time. Follow him on LinkedIn. He does events such as that, and he's really good at coming in and giving hands-on support. And then also where sessions like today, Firmcheck, we're really big on the guidance and helping you as well. You'll find articles on accounting webs and speaking discussions and online discussions about AML processes and hints and tips on there. And really, you can use things like ChatGPT. I, for example, in preparation for today, just popped it in GPT just to try and get a use of the language and things like that. Now, you may not trust ChatGPT, and actually I'm telling you, you shouldn't 100% do it, but it will help you start that process and get a better understanding of what you need to do. So there's a ton of information out there, but like I'm saying, none of it is out there to do this for you. This is down to inspire you, to give you guidance, and hopefully help you on your way. I thought I would just tackle this issue as well before going into the actual steps, why it is essential to have AML process in place. I actually took this from HMRC's website, so a lot of the stuff that you're seeing here is from HMRC on this slide. I suppose, why do they do it? They're trying to win hearts and minds, of course, but actually, if we go back the previous 3 days that we've been presenting the AML Summit, a lot of these points have came out, especially with our fireside chats with the people at the front end of or the coalface, of AML and your clients. So rule number one, and kind of Kayleigh sort of mentioned this a little bit this morning as well. This is I think one of the essential things that accountants essentially struggle with. How can I protect the integrity of the financial system in the UK? But money laundering involves, disguising illicit funds and making them appear legitimate. Accountants, they do play a critical role in safeguarding the financial system. Money will come in and come out, and you've got a real sort of bird's eye view or laser focused view on that as well. So, your clients actually might unwillingly become involved in the money laundering activities, but you having that sort of expert focus on there will help sort of protect the integrity of the financial system. Having an AML process will totally help you mitigate reputational risks. I think accountants and accounting practices in general have a reputation to uphold. I said on one of my talks, I think perhaps yesterday, that accountants or those accounting professionals are the second most trusted industry in the UK behind medical professionals. So people respect you. And Jonathan mentioned this yesterday in our fireside chat. Actually, people come to you for reassurance, and that's what they're looking to be. If by having poor AML processes puts that reputation at risk, and no one wants to be known as a dodgy accountant, then it's worth having a process in place just to protect that. Again, we kind of, this came on the chat box this week about how on earth does AML protect my client's interests? It has, if anything, it's a burden to the client. And on day one, when we're talking to Glenn, actually from the ACCA, he was talking about an AML case that he was personally involved in, where the accountant business got fined. They had to close for breaking AML procedures, and this was related to one of that accountant's most longest standing customers, who he knew personally, and everything was going fine. But actually, there was a silent shareholder in that business who no one knew. And actually, it was that silent shareholder and the knock-on impact not only ruined that business, but then the accountancy practice there as well. So you do have to protect your clients' interests. Some of them, like I say, may be involved in getting involved quite innocently in certain wrongdoing. So really, just like my previous point, your clients come to you mainly for reassurance. So it is only appropriate that you have something in place that can protect them. I've just lost the chat box for a second, so I'm just going to come back in. That's cool. No direct questions just yet. So I've either bored you or I'm at least interesting. Enhances risk management, of course, and again, it states the obvious here. Having the AML processes, it does form an important part of a comprehensive risk management framework that you have. If you have effective AML controls, accountants can really quickly identify and assess the risk associated with money laundering. You can spot the red flags quickly, really, or efficiently as well. And if you want to take these sort of 4+ points of why it's essential to have an AML process that I took from the HMRC website as carrots. These are the carrots, sort of. These are the things that you the treats to have an AML process. The stick really is you've got to do it. Is your legal and regulatory need to do it? There are laws in place to say, hey, if you provide certain services, you must have an AML process in place. So if the carrot's not good enough, then the stick is certainly there just to say, well, you kind of have to do it, which is you may as well just ignore all the other 4 points and just come with the bottom one there as well. And failing to have a really good, efficient AML process in place, like I just said in my last example, it can easily result in severe penalties, fines, loss of your professional license, loss of your practice, loss of your livelihood, and in worst case scenario, even criminal charges, which is deeply unpleasant for everyone involved. I'm going to reiterate this again, so I'm going to go into what an AML process is, purely for guidance, and you can take notes, and I think you'll get the slides after this as well. So it is purely for guidance. It's to still debate. This is not a bona fide AML process. So can you tell I'm worried about it? Yes. So here are the sort of steps you need to take to start building your AML process. First step is to register with a supervisory body and understand what their AML needs are. I think that's quite I dare say everyone is like that. However, you will be amazed. I have spoken to a relatively young guy a couple of weeks ago who was leaving his firm, starting up by himself, and actually was just like, oh, do I need to register for this? So yes, you do need to register with a supervisory body. You must conduct a firm-wide risk assessment on your firm and the procedures and policies. Don't worry, I'm going to go into each of these points in a little bit more detail. Undertake customer due diligence. I think that's been a real talking point this week of what customer due diligence is, at what level. I think Penny gave us a couple of great examples at the last talk, or the talk before the break actually, about what CDD is, and I think that's quite a misunderstood area of what is needed, what makes you competent and not. You've got to implement internal controls, and again, we spoke to Kevin just there, but we had a full theme on this yesterday. Is part of your AML process and part of your legal obligations is that you provide staff training and develop their knowledge and understanding of what AML is. They're the ones probably at the coalface, so it's their knowledge that needs to be super sharp there as well. Okay, so let's go to the first instance, registering with your accounting body. We were talking as a company last night. I see a big comment just came in there. We were talking last night as a Firmcheck, as a team, about other countries, especially in Europe, about what they do, and especially Germany are trying to get a sort of single AML process for all their bodies, for example. Sadly for us in the UK, that's not the case, and again, we can debate that as much as we can. I think I saw a comment on Monday of like, why is there no consistency of what the AAT want compared to what CIMA want compared to ICAW? So registering with an accounting body is vital. Now, again, I took this from HMRC's website. You must register with an accounting body or HMRC if you provide one of the following services. So if you're an auditor who carry out statutory audit work, if you provide accountancy services to clients, a tax advisor or consultant who provide advice to clients in their tax affairs, if you're a payroll agent, for example, if you are customer practitioners and freight forwarders, that kind of thing, and if you're a professional bookkeeping services. So if you give your clients one of these services, then you must register for an accountant, for a supervisory body, and there are a couple of other instances there as well. So if it's important that that's in there. Now, why should you do that? Well, first of all, it does really demonstrate your commitment to combating money laundering straight away. You probably and you do not get a practice license unless you do that. And one of those practice license commitments is that you commit to money laundering framework. It also ensures that you're operating in a legal framework and the industry best practice. So again, we'll go back to that reputational thing that we spoke about earlier, that, if you've got a client and they'll go, oh, that's a CIMA accountant or that's an AAT accountant, that gives them a reassurance that you are following a legal framework and best practices within that industry. Like I say, you may need, or the requirements from each body may be slightly different as well. So please bear that in mind, and please try and work with your supervisory body on that, because you could be a bookkeeper with the ICB, for example, who requires something totally different from CIMA. So just bear in mind that when you do register for our body, say you are moving from a larger practice to start up yourself, but perhaps you register with a different body, the requirements from where you've left to where you're going now may be different. So please bear that in mind. Okay, so step number 2 is to conduct a firm-wide risk assessment. Performing a firm-wide risk assessment is essential to identifying and understanding the potential money laundering risk associated with your clients, but your practice as well. You must, every firm is unique, and I think almost every guest speaker that we've had this week has reiterated that every firm is unique. You have different clients, different niches, different processes, different systems. So you really have to do a firm-wide risk assessment for yourself, not just take a template, but make it unique and make it about you. You have to identify and understand the potential money laundering risk to your practice and where any gaps could be. That is both internal and external. So both internally, you've got your practice, your clients themselves, how you operate, and the staff within that. But also externally, who are your clients? Where do they work? Where do they operate? What the services are? But I think interesting when Kayleigh spoke there earlier, about suppliers as well. How do they operate? Where are they from as well? Now, VJ, I've seen you've asked this question lots, and I actually don't know the answer to this, so I might lean on Lucy at the Q&A at the end there. But you've used a prime example there about outsourcing, and outsourcing is fairly common now, especially in the UK. But outsourcing, have you done the appropriate checks on who you're outsourcing? Are they compliant? What's happening to the data, etc., that you're sharing there as well? So that is a risk to your business, and it's something that you should evaluate and do that as well. I've been told I need to wrap up in 7 minutes, so I'll go as fast as I can. I do apologise. You must assess your client type, services offered, the delivery message, transaction, geographic locations, and also analyse client profiles and single out those who pose a higher risk, call them out, and also the different processes that you will be following when you call that out. Okay, we'll go to CDD now, and like I said, this is quite a touchy subject, and people do this differently. Penny kind of mentioned that earlier, but what do we mean with customer due diligence? So you must undertake CDD to verify new and existing clients' identities and assess the legitimacy of their financial activities. This should include taking ID documents, proof of address, conduct any background checks that you might need to do, verifying business information such as address, websites, telephone numbers, that kind of thing, run PEP and sanction reports on the individuals, and any relevant historic accounting documentation that might be relevant should all form part of your CDD to verify new and existing clients. You also must take client risk assessments, which are slightly different, looking at the client's background and ownership structure, the business activities that they're doing, the nature of services they are providing, any source of funds and historic wealth there as well. Now, your risk assessment should be constantly updated as well. You know, if you're still doing the same risk assessment as you've done 10 years ago, life has changed. I hate to tell people. So, you know, your risk assessments themselves must be relevant and you know, deal with the clients and the day-to-day life that you're doing just now. What I should say is that CDD should not only be done once, and Penny really reiterated that point. And the ICAW's #1 finding for the last 5 years is that the continuous CDD is not being done well enough. Reviews should be more regular if you have more risk concerns, or if you have deemed someone high risk, you should be reviewing the CDD more often, not just annually. Continuous monitoring of CDD is essential, and I think this is again, Penny highlighted that, you know, if you've just got an online KYC check and a credit search, and you think that monitor is enough to make your CDD continuous monitoring, that is not what the regulations are after. They are asking for the continuous monitoring of transactions, behavior, company structures. It's that must be constantly reviewed. Now, Kayleigh made the point earlier that is very hard to do, and you need to start leveraging technology to help you do that. Any new risk factors should be considered and updated regularly, and make the appropriate risk determination as well as your CDD level. Okay, I've got 4 minutes left, so I'm rushing past this. I do apologise. Next step in your AML process is to implement internal controls. A real issue, but a real sort of highlight for me is to create an AML manual or playbook, which clearly documents all your internal procedures and systems that you use in the practice, why you use them, how you use them. Document your risk assessment practices and guidelines, and the reporting procedures that you have both internally and externally. Just like the chat before about record keeping, how vital that is. You know, in the manual or in the playbook, record your record keeping procedures and date when you last reviewed those procedures and your plans to update them as well. I'll go back to my point. Life has changed in the last 10, 15 years. You heard Kevin there. You know, he used to take copies of the information. Now it's all digitally. So does your procedure documentation mirror what you're actually doing on a day-to-day? Also, part of your implement internal controls is to appoint a responsible individual as MLRO. I think that's a big one. Even if you're a sole practitioner, you have to appoint yourself as the MLRO. So, you know, I think that's a lot that gets missed. Documenting your internal and external reporting procedures and make sure that they're very clearly documented and followed by all your staff. And I think that's a good one as well. We're all guilty of this, but regularly examine how effective your AML policies, procedures, and controls are. If you're doing something and it's not effective, then why are you doing it? So regularly review this, examine how effective that you're being, and, you know, document. And then this is my final point. I've done well to make the time up. I do apologise for rushing through this. I thought we were on time, but sadly not. Provide staff training. We've done a full day of this yesterday, so again, I won't go into too much, but it is part of your AML process. It is part of your legal obligations. But part of that staff training, make sure compliance and regulations are fully understood by everyone in the practice. You have firm AML procedures in place and they're followed. Training is regular and it's documented. So again, we spoke about how to do that yesterday in great detail, and also not just the compliance and not just the regulations, but also make sure that the training also covers the potential red flags and how to spot that AML behavior. So in my last minute, what help is out there? We've kind of spoke about this already. The accounting bodies, AML consultants, technology is all there to help you, not do the work for you, but to make it as easy as possible to manage that, because we know we're asking a lot here. We know the industry's asking a lot here, but please reach out and help for that guidance as well. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but it's your AML process. So it is completely up to you, but please reach out. We are all there to help. Final screen, if you want to take a screenshot of these important steps to help build your AML process. I think if you follow these sort of short 5 steps, you'll be in a good place. We'll get the slides out to you if you need more detail. I hope I have managed to claw back some time there. Bang on 12.
No, you did fantastic. I'll take the blame for going a bit over time. I completely underestimated the value that we would gather from the fireside chats. Like 15 minutes is not really enough to really knuckle down on those topics that our accountants, real world people, had to say. So yeah, in hindsight, a little bit longer for them. But no, that's fantastic. Cool. No, thanks, Kev. Definitely think that's going to be helpful and just help form the next session we have. Did you want to introduce me for a change?
Oof. Wow, the pressure.
And introduce the session?
Oh, now I need to get the sheet up.
It's on manage your compliance like a
project manager. Okay, everyone. Brace yourselves. We've kept the best to last, is what I can say. Just on a personal level, the AML Summit was definitely the brainchild of Sophie's really been the driving force, and it's just been a really fantastic week for all of us at Firmcheck. But looking by the comments as well, really worthwhile for everyone. So big thank you to Sophie for doing this and being passionate about it. We've really smashed it as well. So. The final session, while I get the wording absolutely spot on for it, I don't want to do it at the service, is by our very own Sophie. It is manage your AML compliance like a project manager. It's going to be fantastic. She's really experienced in terms of sort of managing processes, and she's done it exceptionally well for us internally at Firmcheck. So if you've got any questions, now's the time to get in about managing change and managing processes like this, because her knowledge is the best that I've worked with. So yeah, enjoy this session. I will stop talking. I hope I've not embarrassed her too much, and kick on, Sophie.
I swear I didn't frame that as like a little compliment sandwich for myself. But thank you so much, Kev. That's not me. I'll just quickly slide through. Okay, cool. Fantastic. So we have spent 3 days together. We have noted a multitude of ideas that we want to implement into our businesses, areas that we fear we may be non-compliant. We have all of these ideas together. At the end of each day, I've asked you just to make notes on what you want to implement immediately into your firm, those elements that might have been leading to non-compliance that you've now gone, oh, and those more fun ones in the longer term too, say education for your team, maybe writing your processes out on a piece of paper. So not a piece of paper, we want to do digital. We want to bring it into the digital sense. But I completely contradict myself because I'm about to talk about putting things on Post-it notes. So anyway, so this is the session where we grab all of those ideas that we have and we condense them into a project plan of actually how we're going to go about making this change in our business. I've been in sessions myself in other businesses where you've given these awesome ideas and then you go, how am I actually going to get there? Like, no one really often talks about how you're actually going to get there. So let's get into it. Yorkshire pudding, how does that relate? So I'm going to be talking to you about how to manage your project like a Yorkshire pie. Now, when I shared this. I can't see the chat. That might be a good thing for this. But when I shared this with our UK team, all of them said that that was a travesty. What is that? I just want to affirm my auntie who lives in Wetherby, which is in Yorkshire. She introduced me to this amazing meal, and she has it every Sunday night, and so do I. You can get it from M&S. It's £5. Highly recommend. It is your whole entire fat intake for the day. It is yum. But I'm going to talk about it in the context of a Yorkshire pie. You know, you have the Yorkshire pudding itself, but then all the innards. So these being project scope, sizing, time boxing, stakeholder engagement, risk mitigation, project timeline, and project cost. And then finally implementation as well. I'm just going to slide that back out. Okay, so planning. So I've just said you've got all of your ideas together. And what we're going to do is we're going to put them on Post-it notes. We are going to dedicate 10 minutes max, maybe more if you've identified additional ones. And you're going to sit at your desk, put your bottom in your chair, and you're going to write down every single thing that you want to implement in your firm. Categorize them as you already have in your workbooks, maybe red or pink for those more urgent ones, blue or green for taking it easy, and then the last color is the things that you want to implement last. We want to brain dump absolutely everything that you can think of, even if it seems silly, even if it's, I need to buy Yorkshire pudding or anything, write it all down. You want to also write things down in a singular task. So in an example, don't zoom in too close on the Post-it notes. I did just start writing random ideas, but on one of them, it's write a risk assessment. Now, writing a risk assessment is not simply just one thing. You need to research it. You need to review your clients. You need to look at, is it FCA or the report that the government gives out on the risks that they've being faced in the world, review that, review everything. So you need to write things down into individual tasks. So something like a risk assessment will likely be built into lots of smaller elements. Write it on Post-its. Oh, fun fact about Post-its. They were actually created accidentally. 3M was trying to create a tougher glue to use in space, and then they accidentally created Post-it glue, which is random, but I love hearing about how things came to pass. But also a really big thank you to Firmcheck COO Matt. When we originally, not holiday just gone, but the holiday before that, we were planning our Christmas party. And so we wrote everything down on Post-its that we wanted to do and have, and people say about the event, but it all on Post-its. And at the time I was like, this guy's weird. Why does he use an obsession with Post-its? But it makes sense now, and I use it in day to day. So yeah. And so when you're writing in this risk assessment example, and you have multiple things that you need to add in terms of the tasks, just for fancy knowledge, this is called a work package. So you're creating work packages for individual outcomes. Okay, so we're going to start organizing these into a timeline. So we want to put, obviously, the things that are leading to non-compliance first, or the things that are causing us the most frustration first. And you can see this in red. And then the additional tasks underneath each action or outcome that we want, we'll pop those in the bottom. So that highlights kind of where our importance lies in the tasks that will need to be undertaken for that. This is just kind of to prevent you from going, can't be bothered today, I might just do the easy thing, which we all have. It's natural. It's actually, I think it's a part of human evolution, trying to do the easy thing. So this just helps you know, okay, these are the things I need to focus on first. And so it's almost putting everything into an order of importance. You want to also be aware of putting down the things of what needs to happen before something else. Now, I hope I can explain this correctly, but say if you have say, implementing an AML software into your firm, what needs to happen before you're able to do that? So is it the task before is you reviewing your existing software? That is the task that needs to go before it. So this timeline is also what do you need to do and what's contingent on something happening before the next thing. I hope that makes sense. Cool. So we are next going to add time to our post-it notes. So we need to really start to understand how long is this thing going to take? Because you can have all these beautiful ideas and then eventually you go, boring, it's going to take me 40 hours. I'm not going to do that. So we want to note down the amount of hours that each thing is going to take. We only want hours. We don't want days. If you go, okay, cool. So this thing, I feel like it's going to take 4 days. If it's going to take 4 days, bless you, that is really hard yards. We want to break it down into hour by hour because we're going to start time blocking out our diaries to understand when we're going to be able to get it done. So I can't drive it home enough. You need to really knuckle down what is the individual things that need to happen before the next thing, making sure they're really bite-sized chunks to make it manageable. Also too, like, you need to have a think about what are we actually even trying to achieve? You know, if we have AML compliance and we think we're not compliant, well, we want to be compliant. That's what we're trying to achieve. So when you're writing down these ideas, you need to play that into part 2. What is the outcome that we want? If you feel like you're compliant, but you've gathered additional things that you want to add, education, is that your goal with this project? You need to define what are we actually even trying to do here? Are we just having fun? What are we doing? So think of this as like the stuffing and potatoes of this Yorkshire pudding, or the Yorkshire pudding itself, actually, yeah, because it holds everything together and anything else that you put into it is only adding to it. And too often it can get to this point where you've done it and you spent an hour and you're like, cool, that's enough. And then you can move on and you've still got your project in place. It's enough for you to get some of it done, maybe not all of it. But if you only ever get to this point, I'm still really proud of you. You've made a really great start. So, cool. Stakeholders. So I'm gonna reference them like the chicken of this Yorkshire pudding. Your stakeholders are your team. They're your customers or your clients, I mean to say. That anybody that is affected by these changes that you're going to make in your business. If you have a team, is there someone in your team that's really like with it? They somehow weirdly are really passionate about AML. There's some people I've met and they like love it. They love the gossip almost of seeing people's driver's licenses and their sales of their houses. Is there someone in your firm that is that way? Bring them into this process, and more importantly, bring the people that will actually be upholding these changes that you make in your business. Ask them, show them this and go, what do you guys think? Have I missed anything? Is there anything more I need to add? What do you find difficult? Bring them into this, because when you come to implement change, if you've not had that conversation with them and you give them something and they go, bro, what's this? This sucks. This doesn't hit any of the things that we need in our business. I've actually noticed this. And so then you're going to have to roll it back and review it. And then your time blows out again and it's just ends up into a mess. We want to mitigate the risk as well that this could, doing any change in your business could have. I might just take away the slides because I don't have any more. You want to mitigate the risk, to your business. So we're dealing with AML compliance. It is risky and you could end up in areas where you were once compliant or maybe sort of compliant and then make a change and then you're not. You really need to consider the areas that you're making these changes and where those faults or failures could happen in that change. So this is where I would probably recommend as well, really reaching out to other accountants, reaching out to Calathea, a David Winch. If you have friends in your accounting body, just go, look, this is what I'm thinking about doing in my business. What do you think? Is there any risks associated with this? Could I go wrong anywhere? Is this even the right thing to think about? So we have done, we've thought about what we want to do in our business. We've put it in a timeline. We've added the amount of time we think it's going to take. We talked to our team. Okay, so we've done all of this. We've not even done anything yet. And this probably will take a wee while to do. I'd probably dedicate maybe an afternoon to this. But we're going to start going to time boxing. So we have our individual tasks. We know how long they're each going to take. A metric that I do is that I'm going to make bookings in my calendar with only myself and name them the tasks that I'm going to undertake. So say I want to write a risk assessment. That's like the easiest one I can reference. And I've dedicated a half hour to researching risk assessments or rewatching the AML Summit again, just to re-understand. I'm going to make a date with myself, half an hour. I'm going to rewatch that. As long as in your timeline, just to be clear. But reason why we're going to put it in our calendar is that no customer or client can then book over the top of it. Your team members can't book a meeting over the top of it. You have that dedicated time there that you've gone, this is what I'm going to do at this point. I find it really helpful, but also too, if something goes kaput, you can very easily just drag that appointment across to a different time when you have space. If you have multiple tasks that you need to undertake, maybe block out a few hours in the morning. The morning seems to be the best time to get these things done because you're less likely to get distracted or get stuck into something else. But so we're going to make those dates with ourselves and name them after the tasks that we want to complete. It's not sunshine and roses. We've talked about risk, but there's also the cost associated with implementing any change in your business. We have the time cost. So say if you're a single practitioner and you've estimated it's going to cost you, it's going to take 30 hours for you to be able to do this, there's the time cost associated with that. So is it that you are going to do this over a longer period of time, or are you going to block out maybe a week to be able to do this? There's always that time cost, and especially too if you share it amongst your team to help them. What are they being taken away? What other tasks are they being taken away from? But the cost of software. So I would suspect that most might go in and go, okay, I've heard Firmcheck talk, I'm going to implement an AML software, or I heard from FYI or Telleroo, they look really great options. I want to go to implement them maybe. You need to be really clear around what is the actual need that you are looking to answer when implementing these softwares. So Firmcheck looks lovely, as Jonathan from Rowden said yesterday, but does it actually meet what your firm needs when it comes to that? So really knuckle down, again, write down what do you need from a software, how much are you willing to pay, and what are the non-negotiables when adopting that software, and what are the nice to haves. Be really clear around cost and what you need. Salespeople have a tendency to really show you the fun things in the software, maybe not always highlight the core things that you've said that you've really needed. An example, like a personal example I can share, is that when we were looking at our e-learning platform, which hosts our Firmcheck content, we looked at a few different software providers and we went with Thinkific. But in that process, I dealt with some like pushy sales dudes who wouldn't answer my questions directly on what I wanted from that software. So it will help prevent you, becoming distracted by the fun things rather than what you need. Another thing when it comes to software is sometimes you might come across one that's not completely it. There's some things that are missing. And even I think Kevin Heaton said, like with Firmcheck, he saw Firmcheck in its ability to be able to grow with his firm. So sometimes you won't be able to get everything from day one. I would personally, again, with the Thinkific example, pick a software provider that you like. The people that you like, the UI, the way it looks, how that is, but also too, salespeople are a more intense version of what it's like for the rest of the company. So Kev is like Mr. Firmcheck. He is Firmcheck, whereas our other members of the team are a little bit less intense with Firmcheck. I hope he doesn't mind. And I hope this makes sense. But if you get along with the salesperson and you like their vibe, their energy, what they're saying, that they listen to you, that you're able to trust them, that is a really good indicator of how that implementation of that software is going to go, because you'll end up working with people like me behind the scenes to implement that in your business. So that's something that's not always considered. If you end up with a pushy salesperson or they're not replying to your emails, it is the first date. That will only get worse as you continue your relationship with them. Document new procedures as well as you're going. I do believe it is part of your audit requirements that your AML procedures are documented, but it's also for your team so they know what's up. What are we doing? What happens when something goes awry? There's that policy in place and that guidance for them. And it's not something that's always done. You sometimes need to go back over and after a few months after something's been implemented and then write that procedure, but do it as you go, because if you're implementing change and there's a few team members in that business, it would just help you ease that communication struggle that you have with your team in terms of what are we doing? How are we going about this? That will help. So final points. And any questions, chuck them in the chat, or anything that you need clarification on. But you need to keep yourself motivated. Software providers, I hope no one has this experience with Firmcheck, but sometimes you're often sold the dream of like this lovely meadow of all these flowers, and all the flowers connect with all the other flowers, and the flowers is a metaphor for software, and that it all works and it's all beautiful and it's easy and life's great and you can go to Cancun every month, but that's not always the case. And with projects, it does take a long time, it does take dedication, and you need to be motivated. Between us friends, we've been working on the Firmcheck Summit for 4 months, from conception, from the idea, and it was very hard to keep the momentum going. So I set myself, if we hit a registration goal, I was allowed to buy myself a nice hairdryer, but put something in place that really makes you go, okay, cool, I can do this. I get a party at the end. I can buy myself this, or I can shout my team a night out. If you're on your own, which has been quite clear when it comes to the summit, that a lot of accountants are here and they're on their own, they're doing it for themselves. Is there a friend? Is there a fellow accountant that you can share what you're doing so that they can help keep you accountable and ask you how you're going and understand also what you're trying to implement? So sometimes we don't get to finish the project. We don't get near the end, and that's okay. If you lose your way, that's fine. You've done the basis to be able to pick it back up in the long run. But it is difficult, and the biggest thing I could say is just really that meat and potatoes vibe. Those ones that are at the beginning of making a plan, putting it in your calendar, holding yourself accountable, will all be really critical to ensure that you get to finish that plan that you've put in place. But also too, we've heard people saying that AML, I'm stressed, I feel anxious, I don't have the time, all of these elements. After you've implemented these processes, do you feel better about it? Do you feel more relaxed? Do you feel less stressed? How does your team feel? Do they feel like it's less cumbersome? Are they happier? And if any of those are no, and it's worse, then you do need to go back and maybe revert back or review. But it is an ongoing process, and it's not, unfortunately, one and done. But I hope that this gives some form of framework for you to be able to make a start and kind of understand the ABCs of how to implement such a thing. I hope that was sweet. I hope that was sweet as, and I hope that the Yorkshire pudding analogy didn't throw too many people off. Put a comment as well if you want some Firmcheck post-it notes. I'm trying to strong arm some people into letting me have some Firmcheck ones. But I'll open back up the chat. There was any questions? Yes, please, to post-its. Nathan, I want post-its, please. Goodie bags. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Great. Super, Sophie. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, you can maybe have my slides. Okay, I'm going to invite Kev back onto the stage as well, just because he's I'm going to move this chat away because I keep getting distracted. Because he's just a yarn. I love hanging out with Kev. How was that? Thoughts? Any big takeaways?
Those pesky salesmen that lie to you.
I know. No, I will give you credit. You're one of the most honest.
I think just speaking to everyone here who are accountants and bookkeepers, worked in the industry for a long time, and you don't tend to get that in our industry. I think we're well aware that. And I saw one of the comments saying, "Hey, thanks very much. It's you're not getting a hard sell here."
Nah.
We're beyond that. We're here to help and support, and gain trust. And you know what, if someone gets a bit of software out of the back of it, then fantastic. My feedback is post-it notes are never far away. Anyone that's met with me the last sort of 6 months, my back wall's always full of post-its. I cleaned it up for the summit today. I wish I kept them on just to show you. For all the digital technology that we talk about, sitting down and writing it on a bit of paper and sticking it on the wall is probably the most efficient way to deal with it, because you've just got a visual there. You can move things about quickly. And yeah, a previous place that I worked at, Free Agent, our CEO actually used to keep all his post-it notes so that he could sort of, as a sort of where we came from and lessons as well. So project management's just vital to what we do. It's change management and everything that we do, and things are constantly changing. I think I saw also, Sophie, someone asked if we could record this as audio and give it as a podcast, and I was just like, oh well.
The most two abrasive accents you could probably have in the world. And you want to listen to us in your car. Okay, cool. Yeah, sure. No, I'm not opposed to it. I've really enjoyed being here and yarning. I'm glad it's over because I can go on holiday. But it is, yeah, no, I definitely think there's a place for us to continue having this sort of platform, definitely. But yeah, I sometimes I get a little bit too in the sauce and I forget critical parts, but my background is revenue operations, and that's where I originally started with ConnectWorks and Firmcheck. So I'm implemented the technology software in our home software called ConnectWorks and built it for Firmcheck also. So if you need help with HubSpot, give me a message on LinkedIn, because that was really, really difficult, and I actually really enjoy helping in that way. So any software implementation questions, you can shoot them my way. But I'm also a type A and a Virgo, so I do think that also leads into this project management articulation kind of area. So we're going to start rounding up for the day. You will see an AML Summit survey there. We, if you, yeah.
Let's bring Lucy on to answer some questions from Calathea. If she's still here.
No, always.
First. Here she comes.
Fantastic.
Because I've had the question written down all morning and I need to ask.
Oh, okay. That's why you like
for poor.
I love these tests, daily tests. Right.
Oh no, I mean, no, this is a genuine AML question. I've not got another.
I will just say, so we'll just do our daily Q&A session with Calathea, with Lucy, and then we'll do a little bit of a roundup summary for the AML Summit itself, and then for anybody that is curious about Firmcheck, you can come to the demo at the end. Definitely the attitude with these demos is like, what is it? Too hard to get almost. But like, oh, you don't have to come along, but if you want to, you can. So we've had really great response for them, but it is the same demo that we have done the previous 2 days, just to be clear. But what's your question, Kev?
I'm also on the demo today. I'll try and concentrate on the client side and not the prospect side. The functionality is the same, but you'll just hear different words from me. So there. Before I get into the question, Lucy, I've mentioned you quite a lot in my talk today. Sophie mentioned. Do you want to, just before people, if they do drop off, give a breakdown of what Calathea does and how you can help those on the call as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So Calathea Solutions is a support business. We support accountants and bookkeepers with their AML programs. We offer audits, as Kev said earlier, where we do a kind of mock inspection and benchmark where your AML processes are at this point in time with a nice, lovely big report, which indicates where you have gaps in your processes and procedures and suggested actions that you can take, which we can help you with if you want to, or you can just take that away and do it yourself. We offer AML training in-house or via video. We do support package where you are able to come and talk to us throughout the year and ask all your AML questions, and we will answer them nice and quickly and succinctly with you giving us all the details that you need to. And we help write documentation, but with your input, because as everyone has been saying over the 3 days, and it's been really great to hear, that these documents need to be personalized to your firm and the risks that you face because of your client profile and the services you offer. So input from you, but we will help.
I should have mentioned it earlier. I've got a prime example. Someone came to Firmcheck to use us, young lad, really good. He specialized in selling luxurious watches. And I was just like, wow, your client risk assessments must be so different to, or just your firm-wide risk assessment just must be like, you know, who are the kind of people that buy 40, 50 grand watches? It must be so different. And he was asking about, he was super on the ball, but he was just like, no, I've got under control. I'll use the templates, but not.
Yeah, and luxury items like that are really prone to trade-based money laundering, where you get fakes being brought in to the country, but being invoiced for the real thing. And so you get a disparity between the goods you're getting and the price you're paying and that kind of thing. So yeah, niche market, but one that needs to be accounted for in the firm-wide risk assessment, as you say.
As he hides his fake.
Don't know what you're allowed a fake one if that's what you paid for.
So I just had a quick look. VJ's online. VJ's asked this question about 4 times in the last couple of days. I don't know if we're all avoiding it. I think I asked Kevin, but I got, outsourcing. So let's go to outsourcing. Outsourcing is really popular just now in the account world. There's capacity issues and things like that. Can you discuss outsourcing and how that impacts your AML and how you have to go about that as a practice if you outsource your bookkeeping operations or perhaps outsource other operations within your practice? You may offshore it, outsource it. There's a new word called offshoring as well. It's not outsourcing, but it's offshoring. But what impact does that have on your practice? How do you go about documenting that? What should you do in that? VJ, I hope I've asked the question that you.
It's a really good question, and actually it has been debated outside of the summit. And actually, to answer, you said he keeps asking that question. We're not avoiding any questions, but these more nuanced ones, I want to get the right answer and to the right people. And we will look at the chat from all 3 days and make sure all questions have been answered. So with outsourcing or subcontracting, you need to, and this is a very, very generic answer I'm giving, and the situations will be slightly nuanced. So probably worth getting advice if you're going to offshore any work, definitely. So if you're subcontracting or offshoring, getting someone to do your work, you need to make sure that they are trained in AML and that they are fit and proper to do the work. Are they people of integrity? So that is the normal screening that you do for your employees as well. If you are subcontracting within the UK, Check that the person you're subcontracting to is AML supervised and that they have a practice license and they are insured, and keep those documentations, because if you have an inspection, your inspector will want to see that you've done that proper due diligence on the person that's doing the work for you. Now, offshoring, it kind of depends on the relationship you have with that company. Are they a subsidiary of your firm? Are they an employee, or are they absolutely, they're separate, they're contractors? And that will then impact how you treat them. I'm not going to give you a specific answer here. I'm just going to give you things that you need to think about. So data privacy and security requirements in the country that they're working in, you've got to consider that and whether that will impact how you work with them. The AML requirements in the host country, how, therefore, who has the responsibility for raising suspicions and reporting them? Does that come to you, or does it go via them? And again, that it's really, I was going to say grey. It's not grey. It's just that it's nuanced, and those working relationships and where they are matter. So if you are going to offshore, I'd really suggest that you come and talk to us. You talk to your supervisory body. You talk to David Winch, someone in the know, and has access to all the information from the different bodies that feed into those requirements. And then a really important thing, however you are doing it, make sure your policy and procedure and your risk assessment, your firm-wide risk assessment, cover that.
I think that's all that was going in my head there. You know, it's ultimately, if you're outsourcing, you have to reflect that, and you are at higher risk as a firm, because you're probably not monitoring those daily trends. Just say you outsource your bookkeeping functionality, for example, you're not monitoring that on a daily basis. That you probably
you're not so close to it. Are you?
So you have to highlight it. Also, I'm well aware that I'm chucking these questions at you, and you have to just answer them live. So if I'm
not comfortable answering them live, I won't do, because
okay, yeah,
it's really important that we actually get the right information. So
story of my life, women tell me to be quiet. So Diana raised this today. It was an unanswered question from yesterday, quite specific. So if you can or can't, that's great. So for a limited company that has 100% owned by another limited company, the parent company doesn't have any individual shareholders owing more than 25%. Who should have CDD done on them other than the directors?
Yes, so you're looking at who has ultimate ownership of the company. I think David did actually answer this in the chat as well, and I agree with him. You are doing your checks on the directors of all the companies that are involved, and as you don't have ultimate beneficial owners in that holding company, you don't need to do checks on those shareholders, but it is really worth considering whether there is someone that has exercises control over the company, so could make those decisions, influence how they work, because that's what you're looking for with a person with significant control, that they have significant control. So there might be someone that actually isn't on the shareholding, but does exercise control. The other thing that I would suggest is that when you do those searches, you actually take some screen prints, take some proof that there aren't those ultimate beneficial owners in that holding company, so that you can show what your thought process is and why you've not ID'd someone.
Okay, fantastic. And Robert, your question is probably the similar answer to what you said before, Lucy, but it's probably coming from the other angle. Rather than outsourcing and offshoring, what if you are the subcontractor? Do you need to comply with the AML if the chartered accountant? So, you know, you're maybe a contractor bookkeeper, for example, you're taking a bit of work from an accountant. That accountant's doing the AML. Should you, as the outsourced bookkeeper, if that makes sense?
Okay, so different supervisory bodies see this slightly differently. My suggestion is that you, as the subcontractor, are invoicing the other accountant. So it's the other accountant that you need to do checks on and due diligence on, which obviously is quite hard because you're not seeing their financial information. So you've got to do the best that you can. Now, some supervisory bodies will say, because you are subcontracting. So I think ICAEW say if you are just taking on subcontracting work from a supervised accountant, then you don't actually need supervision yourself. So dependent on who your professional body is, you need to have a chat with them to see what they expect you to do and to hold. So at this point, potentially the legislation and what your supervisory body might not be aligned, and so you need to work out with them. As you've been saying throughout, looking at the CCAB guidance is also a good idea, because in that guidance there are kind of workflows that you can go through as to who you should do due diligence on and different situations. So it's quite a good document, and all the accountancy bodies have signed up to it, so they should be in alignment with them. But again, with anything you do, make a note of the decision you've made and why you've made it, so that you can justify that to anyone that comes. But I'd suggest talking to your supervisory body.
Cool, fantastic. Lucy, thank you very much for your patience and your understanding the last 3 days. You've been a great support. Final pitch for Calathea. You'll be at the Festival of Accounts and Bookkeeping. You've been extremely busy this week.
Really busy. I just had one webinar cancelled a couple of weeks ago, and I was thrilled because I wasn't sure I could fit in another one.
So yeah, the guys will see you at Festival of Bookkeeping. Anything else apart from my and me and Sophie's sincere thank you? But yeah, look out for you there. Your link of Calathea's on the website has been a huge source of help for us, and no doubt work together very shortly. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been brilliant, really good.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's fantastic. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And for all your follow-ups with our attendees too on their unanswered questions. So that is it. I'm gonna miss this, definitely. We had just put up the AML Summit survey before. We love looking at that, hearing your feedback. I think the benefit of a software provider to do these sorts of sessions is that we are motivated to talk to you. In the background, obviously, Firmcheck, we love customers, we love acquiring customers. So we've got a greater motivation to be able to deliver this content in the way that you ask us than maybe the industry bodies or kind of anybody else. So all your feedback really, truly does go into the machine, and we look at every single one and go, podcast, maybe, or going to Brighton, definitely. So thank you for that, and thank you for all the positive feedback, and if there was anything constructive, please put that in also. So that is us. There is a demo of the Firmcheck product at the end. As I said, it has been the same, so if you haven't seen it, definitely stay around. But I wanted to say a really big thank you to those who attended all 3 days, to those that helped answer the community questions, who gave us really great feedback, engaged. This is awkward because he's standing to the right of me, but I also want to thank Zabir from Journey, who over the last few months has kept me sane and kept me on the right path. I looked at our initial ideation for the AML Summit at one point, and I said I wanted it to be scary and I wanted it to be Halloween themed. So thank you to them for saying, I don't think that's a good idea. But also to the Firmcheck team at home in New Zealand, and Nathan, who is in New Zealand at the moment, who is the head of marketing for Firmcheck. It is currently 2 a.m. for him, so bless his cotton softs. And Kev for being my co-host support and hype person as well. Having not done this before, I've been very grateful to have a veteran. When it comes to Firmcheck, we would love to see you again, even if you don't plan on using Firmcheck. We will be at Fab, Daz, and Accountex. Follow us on LinkedIn, just Firmcheck, but one word, no capital C, just for Nathan's sanity there. And you can find Kevin Lord on LinkedIn and myself, Sophie Maxwell. But Firmcheck LinkedIn is probably the best place for you to hear about future events and hear about the things that we want to share with you and do in future. But yeah, keep an eye on that LinkedIn. There'll be a whole pile of content following that. The recordings, we'll give you the recordings at a point too. They are currently on YouTube. They won't always live there. And your CPD certificates for your attendance will be sent likely by the end of the week, but please be with us. Any final comments before we go into the demo, Kev?
No, I think being called a veteran and your virtual punch bag, you're just all good. All good.
Your virtual punch bag. No, it's just keeping you to time. That's only when you turn into a punch bag. I'm like, let's go, Kev. Cool, fantastic. I was going to say something else, but it's flown out of my brain. But thank you so much. We will see you all again. I am off to Lisbon now for a holiday after the AML Summit. So any Lisbon tips, send them through. But I will step off the stage, leave Kev to do his demo, and I hope to see everybody again in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. And yeah, just for anyone that has seen this before, like I say, a lot of the functionality is the same, but I'm going to concentrate on the client area, just so that you can see where that is. Can Sophie give us her slides before she goes to Lisbon? Yeah, we'll get on that, Jeremy. No problem at all. Thanks again. There's still a couple hundred people online, which is fantastic. I'm fairly, as Sophie said, I'm a veteran. I'm fairly thick-skinned and comfortable with questions and feedback coming on the chat as we go along. I'll try and keep this as short as I can, just and get us finished for lunchtime, 1 o'clock. It feels like Friday because it's the end of the summit. It's only Thursday, but I'll try and go as fast as I can. Okay, I've logged into Firmcheck. We're a cloud-based solution, so you can get onto Firmcheck anywhere. You don't need it downloaded or on a static machine or a server or anything like that. So fully cloud-based solution. You'll see on the left here, obrigado from Colin. That's thanks in Portuguese, Sophie, just in case you're listening. Prospects and clients on the left-hand side. Our prospects will take you through a process of doing exactly what I'm about to do, but then there's also, you can submit this prospect for approval from someone senior in the firm, and then they become a client. That's the only difference that you're not going to see today. I've done that yesterday, I've done it the day before, and more than happy to set up a private demo if you want to see that again. However, clients, let's just go to clients, because most of you have existing clients just now. And we have up at the top here, undergoing CDD, completed CDD, and people. So under completed CDD are your clients that you've been through this process with on Firmcheck, and you'll see when all the review dates are, and it all lives here, all the information. But how do we populate that? So a couple of options here. On the undergoing CDD area, you have add client. Now, the team at Firmcheck, if you have got, say, 200 clients or existing clients that you've got, we'll work with you to get that data into Firmcheck. We'll do bulk up importers. We'll get the companies in there. We'll get the individuals in there, which will also automatically kick off company house searches and pull in the associated parties there as well. If you've got historic documentation as well, we'll work with you to get that historic documentation into Firmcheck. It's a free service. We do not charge for that. And it's, we know that's the time-consuming pain in the backside. Ian and Penny were talking about, that disruption of documents everywhere. So let us know where we can help you with that moving forward. Anyway, let's do this one by one so that we're not doing it in bulk. What do we do? So up at the top right here, you've got add client, and you can import from another system, or you can manually create the client. So if we were to hit manually create, it's an individual, a company, trust, partnership, LLP, other, that kind of thing. Importing it from another system, so let's just pop Firmcheck in here. You'll see at the top there, we're going to import Firmcheck. And what that will be doing is pulling in the company house data in there. So all associated parties, contact information, addresses, registry dates, etc., etc. Underneath here is your ability, if you like, to create internal segmentation. So segment this client into the appropriate workflow. So who is the partner looking after this company? And what we mean with partner is who's going to overall approve the CDD or the review process. So I'll put Tracy here, and then manager is who's the person doing the day-to-day stuff, who's updating this, who is submitting this for review. So again, we'll just pick Rod here if that's okay. If you work in different locations or different teams or perhaps different services, you can segment this further using that. So I'll just hit add and edit. What will happen here is from the add, this opens up the profile area. Sorry, I'm just seeing if we've got any comments. 2 seconds. Nope. What we're doing here is editing the profile of this company. So this company is Firmcheck Limited. Some generic information here about the general details, contact information. This will be gradually pulled through from Companies House. Any registrant, you can see the refresh is in progress, so it will be pulling that through. Any client admin, it's pulled through our old area, and any services that you're doing for Firmcheck. So you might be doing their annual accounts, for example. It will cost £20,000. Who's doing the annual accounts if it's different from the previous area? I think I picked Tracy and Rod. We'll just add 1 or 2 others. Say it's bookkeeping. And you get the idea. So you're recording the services that you're doing for this client. So if we hit update, then next section in the profile area is that you've got who are the associated parties. So again, we've pulled that from Companies House. You may have heard of us talking about Hamish before. Hamish, who's the original founder of Xero. He's our chairman at Firmcheck. And he's right here as the active director of the company. Now, you can segment this here as well, and you've got the direct link to Companies House up at the very top here. So you can come in and actually see the information that we are pulling from Companies House. You can also add people manually here. So if you know that there is another associated party, or perhaps you want to add shareholders, that kind of thing, you can add them there, but we're not pulling that through. So whatever from Companies House, you can do that. Notes, you've got a free typing area here. You can put whatever you like, long-standing customer, perhaps, anything you want, just into a freestanding notes area. And then you've got documents. So you can upload kind of anything that you want here that is separate from Firmcheck. Again, you heard Ian and Penny talking about the documentation everywhere, and my talk about the your AML process and doing CDD for clients. It is important that you put previous annual accounts and evident that. And you know, it's fine if it lives somewhere else, but why not just add everything here to one place? And again, it's a simple drag and drop, or perhaps you know, you can quickly undo that. So I'll just put an onboarding checklist here as well. What you might put there is old risk assessments as well. Perhaps you've got your handwritten copies or screenshots of spreadsheets. You can put whatever you want in here, essentially, is what I'm saying. It's all about documenting evidence. You heard Lucy there. If you've got something and you've evidented it and you're explaining your reasonings why, just pop it into this free documents area there. Okay, so that's the profile of Firmcheck. Okay, now we need to go in and do the CDD, and this is the important part of what Firmcheck offer you. So let's go ahead and do that. So we've got Open CDD here, and a little bit like the process, AML process that I spoke about earlier, here is essentially your AML process. So if you follow these steps, you'll be well on your way to be competent. We'll copy the information from the profile. You've got any notes and support and documentation. So you could say this is a local software company, word of mouth referral, whatever that is. You know, again, I'm just kind of highlighting it as a free typing area. And the big blue bar here is you can attach any documentation once again. So when you see that big blue bar, you can click on it and add anything that you want. I'll mark that section as complete, and we'll move on to CDD candidates. So who are we doing the CDD on? We'll just pick Hamish here and hit that this section has been completed. And we'll go ahead and perform the CDD on Hamish now. So the first area is AML. Is there beneficiary ownership? Is that required? Yes or no? Free typing area once again. And if it's not required, you can tick that box and that grays that area out. We'll hit update. PEP and personal source of wealth. So here we run PEP and sanctions checks as part of our functionality at Firmcheck. Show you how to do that in a second. If they are exposed, then you know, you mark it exposed. This opens up the next area for you to add more evidence. If they're not exposed, then you mark them as not exposed, and it grays everything out for you, saving a couple of clicks there. And now we want to start collecting and verifying Hamish's ID. Now, you can actually do this in two places for existing clients. You can do it here, or where we were in the profile area when we were at the associated parties. I've not got permission to do that. It's because I moved on. I apologise. You could have done it there on the associated parties and edit that. So let's start collecting evidence now for Hamish. Now, a lot of your clients, you know, their existing clients, you've already got ID. You've already verified their ID. You're maybe storing it somewhere else, but you've already done that. So if you've got that, what we can do is get your ID into the software. I'm picking a made-up date of birth for Hamish here. I'm trying to be polite in case he watches the demo at one point. And how was it verified? Did you take the original, and when did you do it? Now, you can attach that ID to Firmcheck, which means you're not storing it elsewhere. It's all in one place. Is the sanctions check info update daily for your supply? So it's a one-off check, Debbie, but you can run the check as many times as you can. So let's just pick the driver license here. And it's stored on the software. I should say, Debbie, something that we are working on is that ongoing monitoring for those checks. So bear that in mind, and I'll come back to you with an update on that. So we'll hit add, and the driver license is now been added to Firmcheck. The attachment is there. You'll see we've got a little tick there because we've verified the name and the date of birth. Now, you might want to go in and add other evidence here, whether that be a utility bill or birth certificate or anything that you have that is verifying this individual's identification. You can see here at the top we've got the PEP and sanctions check here, so you can put Hamish's real date of birth in, and you'd get a full PEP and sanctions report if they are on that report. If you don't have ID for this individual, or perhaps you've got ID on file that's out to date, then what you can do is actually run a full biometric verification from scratch. What that will involve you doing is adding in the client's email address, and they will get an email from you with your name on it from our system. And if you bear with me a second, I will just show you the workflow for that. So it'll look something like this. They'll get an email from us with the blue bar there. They'll select the blue bar. They don't need to download any third-party app. Take a photograph of that ID, driver license, passport, proof of address. We'll accept ID from 193 countries around the world. We will extract the data from that document, so no one's typing anything out, reducing the risk of human error. We'll ask them to take a selfie. And then within about 5 or 10 seconds, you get a full biometric report in Firmcheck attached to that individual saying, yes, the ID has been verified, and you'll also get a copy of the report. In the report, you'll see the documentation that's been taken, the ID that's been taken, and the verification of that as well. Sorry, guys, I'm aware of time, so I'll try and speed things up. So we'll just make the determination on Hamish. We're happy of who he says he is here. Confirm his identity. There we are. And close this, and we'll get a little tick box here. Working our way down our sort of CDD list, if you like, you've got your source of funds. Are they required, yes or no? Hopefully quite straightforward. I'm just going to mark them as no. We'll get another tick box. And then we come on to the risk analysis and risk assessment questions themselves. Now, you've heard all day about risk assessment templates, and yes, they're available and can use them. These are Firmcheck's risk assessment templates that we've got in the software. If you are an ACCA or ICAW member, we can switch out these templates for their templates as well. And again, like what Sophie was saying there, Lucy was saying, We're not asking you to tick all these boxes. They may or may not be relevant for the company that you're working with, but just tick the ones that are relevant, and you're covering your bases there. We're not asking you to go out for everything. If you tick none, that grays everything out once again, and you don't have to do it. You do have to make a determination. Again, this is your risk assessment on that client. It's not the software's risk assessment. Your risk appetite may be different from someone across the road from you. So it's important that you do your own risk determination here at the minute. Are they low, medium, or high? And then what level of CDD are you doing here? Is it simplified, is it standard, or is it enhanced? So if it is enhanced, then you may want to put additional checks in place. You may want to reduce the review period to, say, every 3 months. But again, that's something that the auditors are looking for. They're looking for that you're proactively considering your AML procedures and policies and treating different clients differently. You can see here as well for existing clients, schedule for completion. I think I get this quite a lot from firms is, oh God, we're going to put our existing clients into Firmcheck. Do we need to do it all right now? Well, no, you don't. You can put it there, put a date in the future to say, like, we need to complete the CDD by this date. All the information stays in Firmcheck. You just don't have to go ahead and confirm the CDD process. Now, because they're existing clients, hopefully you've done them in the last 12 months. So, that just gives you a little bit of breathing space on when you're migrating your existing clients on. I'm just going to leave that blank for a minute and put it as update. And then here we are at the review part. All the summary information is here. Are we happy? CDD candidates, all the ID lives here, all the attachments that we've put on lives in one place. Do you want to proceed with your client on an annual basis, of course? And then the next review is a year's time, sorry. You can change that. So like I said, at the previous area, if it's high risk, you might want to put that as 3 months and then do that review in 3 months' time. And again, that is something that the auditors are wanting to see. In this example, though, I'm just going to put 1 month so that I can show you what would happen next year and just where that lives. So if I hit update, you'll see here, existing client, we're going through the first review process, all good. It'll then go to your colleague for review again, and then for a second stage review, and they would go in and tick that box and job done. So if we come back onto Firmcheck now and look at completed CDD, and we'll come into, and we'll just use the filters here. You can see Firmcheck, we determined it today. It's got the 1st of March there because the demo account is on New Zealand time, and they are 12 hours, I think 13 hours ahead of us. So you do get the right date there. It's just the demo account is aligned to New Zealand. And when is the next review due? So in a normal world, that review date would be 12 months. Fingers crossed. That date will be in 12 months time. Now, what happens for your next review stage is that Firmcheck will move in month 9, not month 12, so 3 months before the review date. Firmcheck will move into undergoing CDD. And essentially, if I take this filter off, these are all your clients who need their accounts reviewed or their CDD reviewed in the next 3 months. So this is your workflow. When you log into here, these are the people that need reviewed. If we go to F, there's Firmcheck. So pretend for a minute we're in 2025. AI is taking over the world. You can't believe anything that you do, and some old guy's president of America. What you do then for your annual review is you tick on the Firmcheck box, and you can see, just like the last time, all your ID, all your risk assessments, everything just stays in the same place, and you can go in and review it. So let's make that pending just now. That opens up all the risk assessments again. We can come in and tick these and say, no, we've done our checks. These are now there. I'm just going to close that. Sorry, clicked the wrong button there. But in general, we're good to go. We'll mark that as proceed. I'll put that as my annual review now. Tick the box that I've done the first review. Senior partner gets notification, logs in, does the second review, job done for your annual review. And if we go back, Firmcheck has moved from the undergoing CDD area, come to the completed CDD tasks, and there you have, that is now up for review on the 20th of February 2025. I've ran 3 minutes over. I see a couple of questions, especially from yourself, Jen. I'll come back to you directly if you don't mind. I just don't want to keep anyone else here. There's 153 people still online. So thank you very much. That is Firmcheck product in a nutshell. There is a link on the screen to book directly into my calendar. There's plenty of space. Well, it's actually going quite quickly due to the popularity of this week, but plenty of space to get in. Probably only need 15 minutes, half an hour for me to have a chat about your processes, tell you where we support you, that kind of thing. Debbie, thank you very much. You've been an inspiration to us this week for your engagement and getting involved. So thank you. Pop in a little demo. It says demo, but you've had one. Just even a chat about your process and will help. And look forward to hearing from you all next time. Thank you very much. It's been a phenomenal event. Cheers.